The night Alpha Ronan Krell rejected Naira Ashvale in front of 300 witnesses, she didn't cry, she didn't beg. She stood there, spine straight, while he announced his new mate, a sleek, golden-haired warrior named Celine, and declared Naira's bond broken, useless, an insult to the bloodline. What no one knew was that her wolf wasn't silent because it was weak. It was silent because it was waiting. And when it finally woke up, the entire frontier would learn what happens when you mistake patience for powerlessness. If you want to see how a rejected, defective wolf rises to become the most feared queen in the borderlands, stay until the end. Drop a like, comment your city, and let's begin. The bonfire crackled like broken bones. Naira stood at the center of the gathering circle, surrounded by faces she'd known her entire life. Faces that now looked at her with pity, or worse, contempt. The smoke rose in thick columns toward a moonless sky, and the air tasted like ash and pine resin. Someone had decorated the clearing with garlands of silver sage and mountain laurel. Festival decorations. Because tonight was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it was an execution. Alpha Ronan Krell stood 10 feet away, his broad shoulders blocking the firelight, his expression carved from stone. He wore the ceremonial furs of leadership, wolf pelts, layered over his chest, each one a trophy from a challenge he'd won. Beside him, Celine waited, her amber eyes gleaming with something that might have been sympathy if it weren't so clearly satisfaction. She'd braided her golden hair with red thread, the color of claiming, of victory. Nira's stomach turned. "Naira Ashvale," Ronan's voice rang out across the clearing, cutting through the murmur of conversation. "Step forward." She did. Her boots crunched over pine needles and scattered wildflowers. Her hands stayed at her sides, fingers loose, unclenched. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her shake. The crowd pressed closer, forming a tighter circle. Wolves loved a spectacle. They lived for moments like this. Public judgments, displays of power, the reaffirmation of hierarchy. Her mother stood near the back, half hidden behind Nira's Uncle Marcus. Even from a distance, Naira could see her mother's hands twisted together, knuckles white. Her father stood beside the beta, Thorn, his face a mask of careful neutrality. He'd trained himself not to show emotion during pack business. It was a survival skill in a world where weakness got you killed. "You were born pure-blooded," Ronan continued. His tone was formal, rehearsed, each word carefully measured, like he'd practiced this in front of a mirror. "Your lineage is strong. The Ashvale line has served this pack for 6 generations. Your family has given us warriors, healers, scouts. Your bloodline is beyond reproach." A pause, the kind that made everyone lean in, hold their breath. "But your bond is defective." The words landed like stones dropped into still water. Ripples of whispers spread through the crowd. Nira caught fragments. "Knew it. Always something wrong. Such a waste." Her mother looked away, shoulders curling inward. Her father's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. They'd known this was coming. They'd probably agreed to it in some private meeting with Ronan, nodding along while he explained why their daughter had to be cast out for the good of the pack. Ronan stepped closer, close enough that she could smell cedarwood and smoke on his skin, the musk of alpha dominance that should have made her wolf rise and respond. Close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow from a fight when they were children. She'd been there when he got it, had held his hand while the healer stitched it closed, back when she still thought fated mates meant something. "I cannot take a mate whose wolf does not answer," Ronan said. Each word was a nail in a coffin. "It would weaken the pack, weaken our bloodline, weaken everything we've built on this frontier. The border territories are dangerous. We face rogues, rival packs, human hunters. We need strength. We need certainty." Nira met his eyes. They were dark, almost black in the firelight, framed by lashes that were almost pretty. She'd once thought they were beautiful. She'd once imagined those eyes looking at her with love instead of cold calculation. "So you're rejecting me," she said flatly. "I am." No hesitation, no regret, just fact, delivered with the emotional weight of discussing the weather. In front of everyone. "Yes." "And her?" Nira's gaze flicked to Celine. "She's your choice?" Celine smiled. It was a small private thing, meant only for Naira. A victor's smile. The smile of someone who'd waited patiently for her rival to fail and was now collecting her prize. Her hand rested on Ronan's arm with casual possession, fingers curled into the fur of his ceremonial cloak. "She is strong," Ronan said. "Her wolf is fierce, loyal, everything a Luna should be. She will give this pack the future it deserves." Strong pups. A stable hierarchy. She's already challenged 3 females for position and won. The pack respects her. Nira laughed. It came out sharp, bitter, cutting through the tension like a blade. A few people flinched. Someone near the back muttered something about disrespect. "You practiced that line, didn't you?" Nira tilted her head, studying him like he was a stranger. Maybe he always had been. "How long did it take? A week? 2? Did you rehearse it with Celine, or did she write it for you?" Ronan's expression darkened. A muscle jumped in his jaw. "Naira, no." She cut him off, her voice rising. "You want to do this here in front of the whole pack, fine, but don't pretend it's about strength or the future, or any of that bullshit. This is about control. You can't control me because my wolf won't submit to yours. That scares you. Terrifies you, actually, because what if there's a reason it won't bow? What if defective isn't the same as weak?" The clearing had gone silent. Even the fire seemed to burn quieter, as if the flames themselves were listening. Ronan's eyes narrowed. "Your wolf doesn't exist," he snapped. "It's dormant, broken, silent. You're a shell, Naira. Beautiful, yes, I'll give you that. Pure-blooded, yes. Your family line is impeccable, but inside?" He tapped his chest, right over his heart. "Empty. There's nothing there. No bond, no connection, no power. Just silence." The words landed like physical blows. Naira felt them hit, felt them sink in, felt the weight of 300 pairs of eyes watching to see if she'd break. Her mother made a soft, wounded sound. Her father turned away completely, couldn't even look at her anymore. "Empty," Nira repeated softly, tasting the word. "Interesting choice." "I reject you as my fated mate," Ronan said, his voice rising to carry across the clearing. The formal words, the ones that couldn't be taken back. "I sever the bond between us. I release you from this pack's protection, from our laws, from our territory. From this day forward, you are no longer one of us. You are no longer Ashvale Pack. You are no longer mine." The ritual words hung in the air, heavy and final, binding as blood oaths. Naira waited. Waited for the pain that was supposed to come when a fated bond was torn apart. The story said it felt like your soul being ripped in half, like fire in your veins, like dying and being reborn wrong. Some wolves never recovered. Some went mad from it. But there was nothing. Just that same endless silence inside her head, where her wolf should be howling in agony. Maybe she really was broken. "Anything else?" she asked, her voice steady, calm, almost bored. "Any other pronouncements? Curses? Want to spit on me for good measure?" Ronan looked almost disappointed, like he'd expected her to collapse, to beg, to throw herself at his feet and plead for another chance, to give him some final proof of his power over her, some confirmation that rejecting her had been a devastating blow. "You have until dawn to leave the territory," he said. "Take what you can carry. Go to the outer lands, the neutral zones, wherever you want. There are human towns to the south, other packs to the east. I don't care. Just go." "And if I don't?" Nira asked. Not because she planned to stay, but because she wanted to hear him say it. "Then you'll be forcibly removed." Ronan's hand moved to the knife at his belt. "You're no longer under pack protection, Naira. That means anyone can challenge you, hurt you, kill you, and there will be no consequences, no justice, no revenge. You'll be a rogue on our territory, and we treat rogues the way they deserve." Naira nodded slowly, letting the threat sink in. Then she turned to face the crowd, scanning the faces one by one. Her uncle Marcus, who'd taught her to track. Her cousin Lena, who'd shared her first shift. The healer, old Mara, who delivered her 23 years ago and declared her the most beautiful pup she'd ever seen. "You all agree with this?" Nira asked. Silence. Thick, uncomfortable, damning silence. No one spoke. A few looked uncomfortable, eyes sliding away from hers. Most looked relieved, like a problem was being solved. A weakness excised. Better her than them. Better cast her out than risk whatever taint she carried spreading to the rest of the pack. Right. Nira's smile was cold, brittle, nothing like the girl who used to laugh around these fires. Then I'll make this easy for all of you. She reached up and pulled the silver pendant from around her neck. The pack symbol, a wolf's head wreathed in mountain laurel, the same design that was tattooed on every pack member's shoulder. The necklace had belonged to her grandmother, and her grandmother before that. 6 generations of Asheville women had worn it. Naira held it up so everyone could see it catch the firelight, silver gleaming against the darkness. Then she let it drop into the dirt. "Keep it," she said. "I don't need it anymore." She turned and walked away before anyone could respond. Walked through the circle of wolves who parted like water, their eyes tracking her every step but their bodies staying carefully distant, like rejection was contagious. No one tried to stop her. No one said goodbye. No one wished her luck. The only sound was her boots on the ground and the crackling of the fire that would burn all night, celebrating a future she was no longer part of. Naira's cabin sat on the eastern edge of the territory, where the forest grew thick and wild and the pack's influence started to fade. It had belonged to her grandmother, a healer who'd preferred solitude to pack politics, who'd spent her final years alone with her herbs and her books and her silence. When she died, she'd left the cabin to Naira. Not to Naira's mother, not to the pack healer, but to Naira specifically. "You'll need a place to think," her grandmother had said on her deathbed, her fingers cold and papery wrapped around Naira's. "Somewhere away from all their noise. Promise me you'll keep it. Promise me you'll go there when things get hard." Naira had promised. Now she understood why. The cabin was small, 2 rooms, a stone fireplace, a loft for sleeping. But it was hers, or it had been for the past 5 years, ever since she'd turned 18 and moved out of her parents' house. She'd made it comfortable. Herbs hanging from the rafters, furs on the floor, books stacked in uneven piles because she'd never had enough shelves. She moved through the space mechanically now, pulling a worn leather bag from under the bed and filling it with essentials. Clothes, practical ones, layers for cold nights. Dried meat wrapped in cloth. A hunting knife, well balanced, the handle wrapped in leather she'd tooled herself. A fire starter kit. A canteen. A coil of rope. The basic survival gear her father had taught her to keep ready, back when he still looked at her like she might amount to something. Her hands were steady, her breathing was even. She felt nothing. Maybe that was the real defect, not the silent wolf, but whatever was supposed to make you feel things, process things, break down when your entire world ended. She left the books. Too heavy. Left the herbs, the furs, the little carved wolf her brother had given her for her 15th birthday. "You're really not going to fight this?" Naira turned. Kale stood in the doorway, silhouetted against the dark forest behind him. He was 17, all lean muscle and restless energy still growing into his frame. His wolf had come early and strong, emerging when he was barely 13. Everything hers should have been. He looked like their father, same sharp jaw, same green eyes, same stubborn set to his mouth. "What's there to fight?" Naira asked, going back to her packing. "He's wrong." Kale stepped inside, closing the door behind him. His hands curled into fists at his sides. "You're not broken. I've seen you." "Seen me what?" Naira interrupted, looking up. "Shift? Run with the pack? Bond with my wolf?" She shook her head. "You haven't, Kale, because I can't. My wolf is silent. Has been since I was supposed to shift at 16. 7 years and nothing. Not a whisper, not a flicker. Just..." She gestured vaguely at her head. "Nothing. That doesn't mean you're defective. It means exactly what Ronan said it means." Naira pulled the bag's straps tight, testing the weight. "I'm broken. The bond didn't take. It happens sometimes, not often, but it happens. Usually the pup doesn't survive past infancy. I'm just the unlucky one who made it to adulthood with everyone thinking I was fine, only to discover I'm not." "So you're just leaving, just like that?" "I don't have a choice, Kale. Ronan gave me until dawn. That's..." She glanced at the window, judging the moon's position. "Maybe 6 hours? I need to be gone before then." "You could challenge him." Naira laughed, harsh and quick. "With what? A wolf that won't wake up? I'd be dead in 30 seconds. Less, probably. Ronan's been training since he could walk. He's faster, stronger, and he actually has a wolf. I have a knife and some dried meat. It's not exactly a fair fight." Kale's jaw worked, muscles flexing. He looked so young suddenly, so desperate to fix something that couldn't be fixed. He'd always been like that, even as a kid, trying to mend broken toys, rescue injured animals, stand between their father and their mother when they fought. "Where will you go?" he asked quietly. "Outer territories, probably. Maybe find work as a tracker or a guard with one of the smaller packs. Someone will take me if I'm useful enough." She slung the bag over her shoulder, wincing as the strap dug into her collarbone. "I'll be fine." "Nira, go back to the pack, Kale." Her voice softened just slightly, losing some of its sharp edge. "Don't get yourself exiled trying to defend me. It's not worth it. You're my sister, and you're smart enough to know when a fight's already lost." She moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at him. Really looking, memorizing his face because she didn't know when, if, she'd see it again. "Take care of them, okay? Mom and Dad, they're gonna need it. They should be taking care of you." "Yeah, well," Nira's smile was bitter. "Should and are two different things." She brushed past him, out into the night. The forest smelled like rain and rotting leaves, rich earth and pine. Somewhere distant, wolves howled. The pack, probably still gathered around the bonfire, celebrating their new future. Their strong, fierce, unbroken future with Celine as Luna. Nira didn't look back at the cabin, didn't look back at Kyle standing in the doorway. Didn't look back at any of it. What? The outer territories were a lawless stretch of wilderness between established packlands, a no-man's land where borders blurred and rules stopped applying. Rogues lived here, outcasts, criminals, wolves who'd been banished for crimes ranging from theft to murder, or who'd chosen to leave their packs rather than submit to alphas they couldn't respect. Some formed small groups, temporary alliances based on strength and mutual benefit. Others stayed alone, feral and dangerous. All of them survived by hunting, stealing, or selling their strength to whoever could pay. Nira reached the border by midday. The land changed gradually. The trees grew closer together, their branches interlocking overhead to block out most of the sunlight. The undergrowth became thicker, wilder, untamed by pack maintenance. The air smelled different here, wilder, heavier. Like the forest itself knew it had been abandoned by civilization. She found a stream cutting through a rocky ravine and refilled her canteen. The water was cold, clean, running fast over smooth stones. She drank deeply, then splashed some on her face, scrubbing away the smoke smell that clung to her skin from last night's fire. Her reflection stared back at her from the water's surface, dark hair tangled with twigs, gray eyes shadowed with exhaustion. A face people had called beautiful her entire life, as if that somehow made up for everything else she lacked. Beauty didn't mean shit in the outer territories. She ate some of the dried meat, chewing slowly, trying to make it last. Tried not to think about the fact that she had maybe 2 weeks of supplies if she was careful, and no real plan beyond survive. Her wolf was still silent. Sometimes she wondered if it had ever been there at all. If maybe she was just born wrong, incomplete, a genetic mistake that slipped through despite her pure bloodline. 1 in 10,000, the healer had said when Nira failed to shift at 16. A statistical anomaly. Nothing to be done about it. But then why did she feel like something was waiting inside her? Why did the silence feel less like absence and more like held breath, like a predator crouched in tall grass, perfectly still? A branch snapped behind her. Nira spun, knife already in her hand, body dropping into a defensive crouch. The blade caught the filtered sunlight, throwing silver reflections across the water. 3 wolves emerged from the trees, 2 men, 1 woman. They moved with the loose, predatory confidence of rogues who'd learned to take what they wanted and had stopped caring about consequences. The woman was in the lead, short dark hair, a puckered scar across her throat like someone had tried to cut it and failed. She wore mismatched leather armor, pieces scavenged from different sources, held together with cord and determination. The men flanked her. One was tall and lean, all sinew and sharp angles. The other was broader, slower, with a face that looked like it had been hit too many times and stopped caring. "Well, well," the woman said, her voice rough, damaged. "Look what wandered into our territory." "I'm just passing through," Nira said evenly, shifting her weight, keeping the knife between them. "Alone?" The tall man grinned, showing too many teeth. That's dangerous, sweetheart. Lots of bad things happen to lone wolves out here. Haven't you heard? I can handle myself. Can you? The woman tilted her head, studying Naira like a butcher sizing up meat. You smell like, pack-born, but no pack scent anymore. Recently banished? Naira didn't answer. Her pulse was steady, her breathing controlled. She'd been trained for situations like this, even if she'd never actually been in one. Rejected, maybe? The woman's smile widened, showing the gaps where teeth used to be. Oh, that's rough. What'd you do? Refuse to spread your legs for the alpha? Or maybe you did and weren't good enough? That happens sometimes. Back off, Naira said quietly. Or what? The second man stepped closer, boots squelching in the mud near the stream. He was bigger up close, muscles layered under scarred skin. You'll fight us? 3-on-1? With that little knife? If I have to. They laughed. All three of them, like it was the funniest thing they'd heard all week. The sound echoed off the ravine walls, bouncing back distorted and cruel. Then they shifted. The transformation was quick, brutal, nothing like the graceful shifts Naira had seen in pack ceremonies. These were combat shifts, pure function over form. Bones cracked, realigning with wet snapping sounds. Skin split and reformed, fur sprouting in uneven patches. Faces elongated into muzzles filled with teeth. Within seconds, 3 wolves stood where the rogues had been. The woman was the largest, a gray-black beast with yellow eyes and foam at the corners of her mouth. The tall man became a rust-colored wolf, lean and fast. The broader man shifted into something heavy and dark, built like a battering ram. Naira's hand tightened on the knife. Come on, she thought desperately, reaching for that place inside where her wolf should be. Wake up, please. Just this once. I need you. I need... Nothing. Just that same vast, empty silence. She was going to die here. The gray wolf lunged. Naira dove sideways, rolling across the rocks, slashing upward with the knife as the wolf passed overhead. The blade caught the wolf's shoulder, cutting deep, drawing a line of blood. The wolf yelped but barely slowed, twisting midair to land facing Naira. Claws raked across Naira's ribs. Pain exploded through her side, hot and immediate. She felt skin tear, felt blood soak into her shirt. She kicked hard, connected with the wolf's jaw with the heel of her boot, heard teeth snap together, scrambled backward, boots slipping on wet rocks. The rust-colored wolf hit her from behind. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She went down hard, knife flying from her grip, clattering away across the stones. Teeth snapped inches from her throat, hot breath reeking of rot and old meat. She grabbed a rock, palm-sized and rough, and smashed it into the wolf's skull. Once, twice, again, and again, until blood matted its fur and it staggered back. The dark wolf bit down on her leg. Naira screamed. The pain was white-hot, blinding, absolute. She could feel bone grinding under the pressure, muscle tearing like wet fabric, tendons popping. Blood poured from the wound, soaking into the ground, turning the dirt to mud. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Still nothing. Still just silence and pain and the certainty that she was about to die alone in the mud with no one to mourn her. The gray wolf loomed over her, jaws open wide, strings of saliva dripping onto her face. Ready to finish it, to tear out her throat and end this pathetic attempt at survival. An arrow punched through its skull. The wolf dropped like a stone, dead before it hit the ground. The arrow had gone straight through, tip emerging from the bottom of its jaw, fletching still vibrating from the impact. The other 2 froze, snarling, head swinging around wildly looking for the threat. 2 more arrows fired in rapid succession, 2 more bodies hitting the ground. The rust wolf took one through the eye. The dark wolf got one in the chest, right through the heart. Professional shots, kill shots. No hesitation, no wasted movement. Naira lay there, gasping, bleeding, staring up at the canopy. Her leg was on fire. Her ribs felt cracked, maybe broken. Her vision was starting to blur at the edges, darkness creeping in. Footsteps approached. Heavy boots on stone. She tried to focus, tried to see who'd saved her, tried to form words. A man crouched beside her. He was massive, even sitting, broad shoulders that blocked out what little light filtered through the trees. Dark hair pulled back in a rough tie. Darker eyes, cold and assessing. A face that looked like it had been carved with a dull blade and left half-finished, all hard angles and brutal lines. A scar ran from his left temple down to his jaw, pale against tanned skin. He wore leather and fur, functional armor marked with old bloodstains and newer scratches. A crossbow hung from his back, still loaded with another bolt. "You're still alive," he said. His voice was low, rough, like gravel grinding. "Surprising." "Who?" Naira coughed, tasted copper, bright and metallic. "Who are you?" "Someone who just saved your life." He studied her with an expression that might have been curiosity or might have been calculation. Hard to tell. "What's a pack wolf doing out here alone?" "Not pack anymore." "Rejected." "Yes." The word came out weak, pathetic. She hated how small she sounded. He glanced at her leg, expression unchanging. "That's bad. You'll bleed out in an hour, maybe less." "Probably less, actually. That bite severed something important." "Great," Nira managed, trying to inject some defiance into her voice and failing. "Thanks for the diagnosis." The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile, but not quite, like he'd forgotten how and was trying to remember. "I can help you," he said, "but it'll cost. I don't have anything." Nira gestured weakly at her scattered belongings. Her bag had spilled open in the fight, contents strewn across the rocks. "No money, no weapons worth taking, just nothing. You have time, strength, once you heal, skills, probably, if you were pack-trained." He stood, looking down at her, blocking out the sky. "Work for me. 6 months. Do what I say, when I say it, no questions. In exchange, I'll keep you alive, fed, housed, and trained." "Trained for what?" "Surviving." He tilted his head, studying her like she was a puzzle he was deciding whether to solve. "Fighting, killing, thinking. Everything your pack should have taught you but probably didn't because they were too busy teaching you to submit." Nira's vision was darkening at the edges. She could feel herself slipping, the blood loss pulling her under like a riptide. Cold was spreading from her extremities inward, and she knew what that meant. Shock. System shut down. Death. "Fine," she whispered. "Smart girl." He crouched again, slipping his arms under her body and lifting her as easily as if she weighed nothing. His grip was careful, despite his strength, avoiding the worst of her injuries. "Name's Darius, by the way. Darius Vorn." "Naira." "Well, Naira," Darius said, turning toward the trees, carrying her away from the bodies and the blood and the life she'd failed to leave behind. "Welcome to the Outer Territories. Try not to bleed on my coat. It's new." Then everything went black. Naira woke in a room she didn't recognize. Stone walls, rough-cut and uneven, mortared together with clay. A low ceiling with exposed beams. A single window, narrow and deep-set, showing nothing but dense forest beyond. The bed beneath her was simple. A wooden frame with rope supports, a thin mattress stuffed with what smelled like dried grass and herbs. Rough but clean. Her leg was bandaged, wrapped tight with strips of cloth that smelled sharp and medicinal. Herbs and honey and something else. Something bitter. Her ribs were bound too, compression tight enough to make breathing shallow and careful. She tried to sit up, pain lanced through her entire body, white-hot and immediate, and she collapsed back with a gasp. "Don't!" Darius sat in a chair by the door, sharpening a knife. The rhythmic scrape of wet stone on steel was almost soothing. He didn't look up, focused entirely on his work, turning the blade to catch the light and check the edge. "You've been out for 2 days," he said conversationally. "Fever broke this morning around dawn. You're lucky. That bite was deep. Another inch to the left, and it would have severed the femoral artery completely. You'd have bled out before I could have done anything." Naira swallowed. Her throat felt like sandpaper, dry and raw. "Where am I?" "My camp. About 20 miles northeast from where I found you, deep in the Outer Territories. Far enough from packlands that no one comes looking, close enough to hunting grounds that we don't starve." "Camp?" "More like a fortress, but camp sounds less pretentious." He finally looked at her, dark eyes giving nothing away. "How do you feel?" "Like I got mauled by 3 rogues and dragged through the woods for 20 miles. "Accurate assessment." He set the knife aside, satisfied with its edge. "Can you stand?" "I don't know." "Try." Nira gritted her teeth and swung her legs over the side of the bed. The bandaged one screamed in protest, pain shooting from ankle to hip, but she managed to put weight on it. Her legs shook, muscles weak from fever and blood loss, but she stayed upright. "Good," Darius said, standing. He crossed to a small table where a clay pitcher sat alongside wooden cups. He poured water and handed it to her. "You heal fast. Faster than normal, even for Packborn." "Not fast enough. Fast for someone with a dormant wolf." He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching her drink. "Most rejects who get injured that badly don't make it. Body can't heal right without the wolf helping, but you're already mobile after 2 days." "Interesting." Nira drained the cup. The water was cold, clean, tasting faintly of minerals. Perfect. She wanted to ask for more, but didn't want to seem weak. 6 months, she said instead. That was the deal. It was. "What exactly do you want me to do?" Darius smiled. It wasn't a kind expression, all teeth and calculation, nothing warm about it. "Learn," he said. "Fight. Survive. Stop being weak." He pushed off the wall, moving closer. "You were pack-born, right? Trained in their ways? Hunt in formation? Rely on your wolf? Trust the hierarchy? Submit to the alpha?" "Yes. All of that is useless now. Worse than useless. It'll get you killed." He pulled another chair over and sat, close enough that she could see old scars on his hands, knuckles that had been broken and healed wrong. "Out here, your wolf won't save you. Your bloodline won't save you. Your family name, your training, none of it matters. Only your mind, your instincts, and your willingness to do whatever it takes to survive one more day." "And you'll teach me that?" "I'll try. Whether you learn is up to you." He leaned back, chair creaking. "I'm going to teach you how to fight dirty, how to think 3 steps ahead, how to read people, find their weaknesses, exploit them, how to be something your old pack never imagined and would probably exile you for becoming anyway." "And what's that?" "Dangerous." The word hung between them, heavy with promise and threat. Nira stared at this scarred, brutal stranger who'd saved her life for reasons she still didn't understand, who spoke about violence like it was philosophy, about survival like it was art. "Why?" she asked finally. "Why help me at all? You could have left me to die. Probably should have. One less reject in the world, right?" Darius was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those cold, empty eyes that reminded her of nothing. Not Ronan's dark intensity, not her father's careful neutrality, nothing human or wolf. "Because I see something in you," he said finally. "Something you don't see yourself. Not yet, anyway." He stood, moving toward the door. "Most rejects, when they get cast out, they break. Become feral or pathetic or just give up. But you?" He looked back over his shoulder. "You stood there while your alpha tore you apart in front of everyone, and you didn't beg, didn't cry, didn't break. You walked away with your head up. That takes something most wolves don't have. Pride? Spine." He opened the door. "Rest today. Eat when someone brings food. Tomorrow we start." "Start what?" His smile was cold, empty, absolutely certain. "Your transformation." Then he was gone, and Nira was alone again with the silence in her head and 1,000 questions she didn't have answers to and the growing suspicion that she'd just made a deal with something far more dangerous than rogues. But for the first time since the rejection, since Ronan's cold eyes and Celine's victorious smile and her parents' carefully averted gazes, she felt something stir inside her. Not her wolf, something else. Something sharper, hungrier, more vicious than anything she'd felt before. Anger, pure, clean, focused anger. And underneath it, buried deep but growing. A promise to herself that she'd never be weak again, never be rejected again, never be nothing again, whatever it took, whatever it cost. She was done being the broken wolf. Time to become something new. The first lesson came at dawn. Nira woke to cold water hitting her face. She jerked upright, gasping, pain shooting through her ribs and leg. Darius stood over her with an empty bucket, his expression about as sympathetic as stone. "Get up," he said. "You've got 5 minutes to get dressed and meet me outside." "I can barely walk, then crawl. 4 minutes now." He left, boots heavy on the wooden floor. The door slammed behind him hard enough to rattle the frame. Nira sat there, dripping, every muscle screaming. Her leg throbbed where the bite had nearly taken it off. Her ribs felt like someone had driven nails between them. But she could hear movement outside, the scrape of metal, the thud of something heavy being dropped. Darius wasn't bluffing. He'd start without her, and somehow she knew that would be worse than the pain of moving. She rolled out of bed, gritting her teeth so hard her jaw ached. Her leg buckled twice before she got her boots on. The bandages were tight enough to hold things together, but each step felt like walking on broken glass. She grabbed the doorframe, steadied herself, and limped outside. The camp sprawled across a clearing carved from dense forest. Stone buildings clustered together. Some looked ancient, others newer, all functional and brutal in their simplicity. A well sat in the center. Training posts ringed the edges, scarred wood showing years of blade work. Targets hung from trees at varying distances. A forge smoldered in one corner, sending thin smoke into the gray morning sky. Darius stood near the training posts, arms crossed. 3 other people were with him. 2 men and a woman, all watching Naira with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. "Took you long enough," Darius said. "This is Naira. She'll be training with us for the next 6 months. Nira, this is my crew. Gareth." He nodded to a stocky man with a shaved head and a nose that had been broken so many times it sat crooked on his face. "Mira, the woman, lean and tall, with braided black hair and knife scars running down both forearms. And Cade, the youngest, maybe early 20s, with nervous eyes and hands that wouldn't stay still. None of them offered greetings. "She's pack-born," Mira said, voice flat. "I can smell it on her." "Was pack-born," Darius corrected. "Got rejected 3 days ago. Wandered into rogue territory and nearly got killed for it." "And you saved her?" Gareth's laugh was harsh. "Going soft in your old age?" "She's paying her debt. 6 months of work." Darius picked up a wooden training sword from a rack and tossed it to Naira. She caught it clumsily, nearly dropped it. "Starting now." Nira looked at the sword, then at her bandaged leg. "You can't be serious." "Do I look like I joke?" Darius drew his own training blade. "Defend yourself. I can barely stand." He came at her. The attack was fast, but not full speed. A testing strike, blade arcing toward her shoulder. Naira's body reacted before her mind caught up, muscle memory from years of pack training. She raised her sword, blocked, felt the impact jar through her arms. Darius pressed forward, another strike, then another, each one controlled but relentless. Naira backpedaled, her injured leg screaming with every step. She blocked twice more, then her leg gave out. She went down hard. Darius's blade stopped an inch from her throat. "Dead," he said calmly. "What did you do wrong?" "My leg is an excuse, not an answer." He lowered the blade. "You relied on footwork you don't have anymore. Your body tried to move like it used to, but it can't, so you fell. Again." Nira pushed herself up, using the sword as a crutch. Her hands were shaking. From pain or anger, she couldn't tell anymore. "I'm injured," she said through gritted teeth, "and your enemies will care about that exactly never." Darius circled her slowly. "In pack fights, there are rules. Honor codes. You don't attack someone who's down, who's wounded, who yields. Out here?" He gestured to the forest around them. "There are no rules. You're injured? Good. That makes you easy prey. You're tired? Perfect. You're alone? Even better. Then what's the point of training if I'm already at a disadvantage? The point is learning to win anyway." He tossed the sword to Gareth. "Show her." Gareth caught it, rolling his shoulders. He was shorter than Darius, but built like a boulder, compact, solid, immovable. He moved toward Naira without preamble, sword raised. Naira lifted her blade. Gareth's first strike nearly tore it from her hands. The second one did. Her sword clattered to the ground and Gareth's blade pressed against her sternum. "Dead," Gareth said. His breath smelled like old meat. Mira went next. She was faster, more technical. She disarmed Naira in 4 moves, blade at her throat, before Naira even registered what happened. "Dead." Cade was last. He was nervous, hesitant, but still better than Naira. His blade found her neck in under a minute. "Dead." Nira stood there, breathing hard, pain radiating through every part of her body. 3 fighters, 3 kills, less than 5 minutes total. The message was clear. "You see the problem?" Darius asked. "I'm weak," Naira said bitterly. "No, you're predictable." He picked up her fallen sword and handed it back. You fight like you were trained, form over function, honor over survival. Every move telegraphed, every counter by the book. Against pack wolves who fight the same way, you'd be fine. Against anyone else, you're dead before you finish your stance. So what do I do? Stop fighting fair. Darius moved behind her, adjusting her grip on the sword. His hands were rough, calloused, impersonal. Your legs hurt? Use it. Make them think you're more injured than you are. Stumble when they don't expect it. Fall into their strikes instead of away. Bite, claw, throw dirt in their eyes. Whatever it takes. That's dishonorable. That's survival. He stepped back. Honor is a luxury for people who can afford to lose. You can't. Not anymore. So either learn to fight dirty, or dig your grave now and save us all the time. Nira looked at the sword in her hands, at these three fighters who'd killed her over and over without breaking a sweat, at Darius who watched her with those cold, assessing eyes. Again, she said. Darius smiled. Again. They went until she collapsed. Days blurred together in a haze of pain and exhaustion. Naira woke before dawn every morning to that same bucket of cold water. Trained until her hands bled and her leg threatened to give out completely. Ate whatever Mira threw at her, usually stew, heavy on meat and roots, designed for fuel rather than taste. Collapsed into bed and did it all again the next day. Darius pushed her relentlessly. Sword work until her arms felt like dead weight. Hand-to-hand combat that left her covered in bruises. Endurance runs through the forest despite her limp, Gareth chasing her with threats of what he'd do if he caught her. She learned to set snares, track prey, read weather patterns in the sky. How to tell poisonous plants from edible ones. Where to strike a body to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. Every lesson came with pain. Every mistake cost her. Nira lost count of how many times she died in training. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Blade to throat, knife to kidney, hands around her neck. Darius never let her forget how easy it would be to kill her. How many ways there were to die if you weren't careful, weren't smart, weren't willing to do whatever it took. But something was changing. Her body adapted. The limp faded as her leg healed, muscle and tendon knitting back together stronger than before. Her reactions quickened. She started reading attacks before they landed, seeing the tells in her opponent's shoulders, their eyes, the shift of their weight. She started fighting dirty. The first time she threw dirt in Gareth's face during a sparring match, he'd stopped, stunned. Then he'd laughed, a genuine surprise sound, and nodded approval. There we go, now you're learning. The first time she faked a stumble and turned it into a sweep that took Mira's legs out from under her, Darius had actually smiled. But the silence in her head never changed. Her wolf was still gone, still dormant, still useless. And every day that passed reminded her she was trying to survive in a world built for wolves with nothing but human determination and stolen tricks. It wasn't enough. She knew it wasn't enough. 3 weeks in, everything fell apart. Yeah. They were running a supply route to one of Darius's contacts, a trader who operated from a fortified camp 2 days north. Naira, Gareth, and Cade loaded packs with furs and dried herbs, valuable enough to trade for weapons and medicine. The plan was simple. Get there, make the trade, get back. 3 days, 4 if the weather turned. Stay alert, Darius said before they left. Rival groups know about these routes. They'll be watching. We've done this 100 times, Gareth said, securing his pack. We'll be fine. Nira wasn't so sure. There was something in Darius's expression, a tension she couldn't name. But she didn't argue. 3 weeks of training hadn't earned her the right to question his decisions. They left at dawn. The journey north took them through dense forest, following game trails too narrow for more than single file. Gareth led. Cade brought up the rear. Nira stayed in the middle, trying not to slow them down, trying not to think about how exposed they were. The attack came on the second day. They'd stopped to refill water at a stream when arrows started flying. The first one took Cade in the shoulder, spinning him around. He went down hard, gasping. The second arrow hit a tree inches from Naira's head. Ambush, Gareth roared. Move! Nira grabbed Cade's good arm, hauling him behind a fallen log as more arrows rained down. She could see shapes in the trees now, at least 6, maybe more. Rogues, probably. Or worse, an organized raiding party. How bad? She asked Cade, checking his shoulder. Hurts like hell. His face was pale, sweating. Arrow's still in there. Don't pull it out. You'll bleed faster. Nira looked around for Gareth. He'd taken cover behind a boulder, his crossbow already loaded and returning fire. One of the attackers fell with a bolt through his chest, but they were outnumbered. We need to fall back, Nira called to Gareth. Can't. They've got us pinned. Another arrow whistled past his head. Cade can't run like that. He was right. Cade was trying to load his own crossbow one-handed and failing, fingers slick with blood. They were stuck. Nira's mind raced. 3 weeks of Darius's training echoed in her head. Fight dirty. Use what you have. Rules are for people who can afford to lose. She looked at the stream, at the dense undergrowth, at the way the attackers were positioned, spread out but focused on Gareth, the obvious threat. They weren't watching her. Cover me, she said to Gareth. What? She was already moving. Nira dropped low, using the undergrowth as cover, circling wide around the attacker's left flank. Her heart hammered. Every branch that snapped under her boots felt like a scream, but Gareth was making enough noise, shouting challenges, firing his crossbow, to mask her movement. She got behind the first attacker, a lean man focused entirely on Gareth's position. Her knife was in her hand before conscious thought, Darius's voice in her head, throat or kidney. Fast and quiet. She chose the kidney. The man made a choked sound and dropped. Nira took his bow, his quiver, kept moving. The second attacker heard something, started to turn. Nira put an arrow through his neck. She wasn't a great shot. The arrow wobbled, hit lower than she'd aimed, but it hit, and that was enough. He went down clutching his throat, drowning in his own blood. The others finally noticed. Behind! Someone shouted. Nira ran. Not away. Deeper into their position. She fired twice more, missed both times, but it scattered them. Created chaos. Gareth capitalized immediately, his crossbow taking down another raider. 4 left. They were regrouping, turning their attention to this new threat, this pack-born girl who'd just killed 2 of theirs. One of them shifted, bones cracking, fur sprouting. A brown wolf, bigger than the rogues who'd attacked her that first day. Nira's blood went cold. She couldn't fight a shifted wolf, not without her own. She'd die in seconds. Then don't fight it head on, Darius's voice whispered. Use the terrain. Use your brain. Nira backed toward the stream, keeping her eyes on the wolf. It stalked forward, growling, foam at its jaws. The others hung back, watching, waiting to see what would happen. The wolf lunged. Nira dove sideways, hit the stream, went under. The water was freezing, shockingly cold. She felt the wolf's jaws snap shut where her head had been. Came up gasping, already moving downstream, using the current. The wolf followed, splashing after her, slower in the water. Nira scrambled onto the opposite bank, grabbed a fallen branch thick as her arm. The wolf lunged out of the stream. She drove the branch into its open mouth as hard as she could. The wolf's jaws clamped down on wood instead of flesh. Nira twisted, shoved, using the wolf's own momentum to force the branch deeper. The wolf gagged, tried to pull back. Nira pulled her knife and opened its throat. Blood poured into the stream, turning the water red. The wolf collapsed, shifting back to human as it died. A young man, maybe 20, eyes wide with surprise. Nira didn't look at his face. She turned back to the fight. Gareth had killed another one. 2 left, and they were running now, disappearing into the forest. Silence settled over the stream, broken only by Cade's ragged breathing. That was insane, Gareth said, lowering his crossbow. He was staring at Nira like he'd never seen her before. Absolutely fucking insane. Nira's hands were shaking. She looked down at the knife, at the blood covering her hands, her arms, at the bodies scattered around the stream. She'd just killed 3 people. No, not people. Enemies. Threats. Just like Darius had taught her. So why did her stomach feel like lead? We need to move, she said, her voice sounding distant, strange. More might come. Yeah. Gareth moved to help Cade up. Let's get that arrow out and bind it. Then we move fast. They worked quickly, efficiently. Cade bit down on a leather strap while Gareth snapped the arrow shaft and pulled it through. Nira packed the wound with moss and herbs, wrapped it tight. It would hold long enough to get back to camp. They left the bodies where they fell. The journey back took a day and a half of hard travel. No one spoke much. Cade drifted in and out of consciousness. Gareth kept watch, crossbow always ready. Naira's mind replayed the fight over and over, the knife sliding into flesh, the wolf's blood on her hands, the way the young man's eyes had gone empty. She'd survived. That was what mattered. That was all that mattered. When they finally reached camp, Darius was waiting. He took one look at them, Cade's bandaged shoulder, the blood on Nira's clothes, Gareth's grim expression, and nodded slowly. "What happened?" Gareth explained. The ambush, the numbers, how Naira had flanked them and turned the fight, how she'd killed a shifted wolf with nothing but a branch and a knife. Darius listened without interrupting. When Gareth finished, he turned to Naira. "How many?" he asked. "3," Nira said. "I killed 3. How do you feel?" She opened her mouth to say fine, to say it didn't matter, to give the answer she thought he wanted, but her hands were still shaking. "Sick," she said instead. "I feel sick." "Good." Darius's expression didn't change. "That means you're still human. The day killing doesn't bother you is the day you become something else. Remember that." He walked away, leaving Naira standing there in the fading light, covered in other people's blood, trying to reconcile the girl who'd been rejected 3 weeks ago with the person who'd just killed without hesitation. Training changed after that. Darius pushed harder. Longer sessions, more complex scenarios, situations designed to break her mentally as much as physically. He made her fight blindfolded, fight injured, fight outnumbered with her hands tied. "Out here, fair fights don't exist," he said. "So we train for unfair ones." Naira learned to read terrain, to use shadows and sound, learned which plants could be made into poison, which ones into medicine, how to move silently through different types of forest, different weather, how to track not just animals but people, reading their patterns, predicting their movements. Mira taught her knife work, the brutal close-quarters combat that left no room for error. "Wolves rely on teeth and claws," Mira said, demonstrating a disemboweling strike. "You don't have that luxury, so you learn to be creative." Gareth taught her survival skills the hard way, dropping her in the forest with nothing and making her find her way back. "Resources are temporary," he said. "Knowledge is permanent." Even Cade, once his shoulder healed, taught her his specialty, traps and ambushes. "I'm not strong like Gareth or fast like Mira," he explained, setting a snare that could take down a full-grown wolf. "So I learned to make the environment fight for me." But it was Darius who taught her the most important lesson. 6 weeks after she'd arrived, he brought her to a clearing deep in the territory. A man was tied to a tree there, middle-aged, scarred, clearly a fighter. His eyes tracked them with pure hatred. "This is Marcus," Darius said. "He led the group that ambushed you and Gareth. We caught him 2 days ago." The man spat blood. "Should have killed more of you." "He's unrepentant," Darius continued, ignoring the outburst. "He'll try to kill us again if we let him go. He knows our camp location, our numbers, our routines. He's a threat." Naira looked at the man, then at Darius. "What are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking what you think should be done with him." "Kill him," Gareth said from behind them. "Obviously." "Let him go with a warning," Cade offered quietly. "Maybe he'll leave us alone." Mira just shrugged. "Your call, boss." Darius kept his eyes on Naira. "What do you say?" Nira studied the man. He'd tried to kill her. Would have succeeded if she'd been slower, less prepared. His people had put an arrow in Cade's shoulder, could have killed all of them. But he was tied up, helpless. Killing him now wasn't self-defense, it was execution. "If we let him go," she said slowly, "he'll come back. Bring more people, more weapons. He'll be smarter next time." "Yes," Darius agreed. "But killing someone who's defenseless is sometimes necessary." Darius pulled a knife from his belt and offered it to her. "This is the real lesson, Nira. Not how to fight, not how to survive, but how far you're willing to go. What you're willing to become to stay alive." Nira took the knife. It was heavy in her hand, the blade sharp enough to catch light. The man in the tree watched her with defiant eyes. "Do it, Packborn. Prove you're just another animal." Her hand tightened on the knife. She thought about Ronan, about standing in that circle while everyone watched her be torn apart, about being cast out, left to die, deemed worthless. She thought about the rogues who'd nearly killed her that first day, about the ambush that could have ended with Cade dead, Gareth dead, her dead. She thought about everything Darius had taught her about survival, about doing whatever it took. Then she lowered the knife. "No," she said, handing it back to Darius. Gareth made a disgusted sound. "You're weak." "Maybe?" Nira met Darius's eyes. "But I'm not a murderer. Not like this. In a fight? Yes. To defend myself or the people I'm with? Absolutely. But this?" She gestured to the tied man. "This is just revenge, and I won't become that." Darius studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Gareth, cut him loose. Give him water and point him south. Tell him if we see him again, there won't be mercy." "You're making a mistake," Gareth muttered, but he obeyed. The man stumbled away, not looking back, probably not believing his luck. When they were alone, Darius turned to Naira. "You failed," he said. "I know. He'll probably come back, bring friends, maybe get someone killed." "I know that too." "Then why?" Nira was quiet for a moment, searching for words. "Because if I kill someone like that, in cold blood, just because it's convenient, then what's the difference between me and Ronan? Between me and all the people who decided I wasn't worth keeping around? I have to draw a line somewhere, or I'll lose everything that makes me who I am." Darius smiled. It was a real smile this time, reaching his eyes. "You didn't fail," he said. "That was the test, and you passed." "I don't understand." "Power without restraint is just violence, Naira. I needed to know you could be dangerous without becoming a monster, that you'd know when to stop." He started walking back toward camp. "Most people I've trained can't make that distinction. They become so focused on surviving that they forget what they're surviving for. But you," he looked back at her, "you might actually make it." Nira followed him through the forest, the weight of his words settling over her. She was changing, becoming something new, something harder and sharper than the girl who'd been rejected. But she was also still herself, still holding on to the pieces that mattered. It was a thin line to walk, but she was learning. 2 months in, Darius announced it was time for a real test. "There's a supply cache 3 days east," he said, spreading a crude map on the table. "Weapons, medicine, preserved food. It's hidden in an abandoned mining camp near the border of the Krell territory." Nira's blood went cold at the pack name. Her old pack, Ronan's pack. "You're going alone," Darius continued. "Get there, retrieve the supplies, get back. 7 days total. You'll have basic gear but no backup. If you run into trouble, you handle it yourself." "That's suicide," Mira said. "Krell territory is heavily patrolled. If they catch her—" "They won't," Darius interrupted. "Because she'll be smart, careful. Everything I've taught her." He looked at Naira. "Unless you don't think you're ready." It was a challenge. They both knew it. Nira thought about her training. 2 months of pain and blood and lessons learned the hard way. 2 months of becoming someone new. "I'm ready," she said. "Good. You leave at dawn." That night, Naira couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what waited for her in Krell territory, the pack that had cast her out, the people who'd watched her be rejected and said nothing. Ronan. Part of her wanted to avoid the territory entirely. Circle around, take the long route, anything to avoid the risk of running into someone she knew. But another part, the part that had been growing stronger these past 2 months, wanted them to see her, wanted them to see what she'd become, wanted them to know they'd been wrong. She left before dawn while the camp was still dark and quiet. The journey east took her through familiar territory at first, then into lands she'd only heard about in pack stories. The forest grew denser, older, the trees massive and ancient. She moved carefully, all her training focused on staying invisible, staying alive. On the 3rd day, she reached the border of Krell territory. The markers were subtle but clear if you knew what to look for. Scratches on trees at specific heights, scent marks, the paths worn by regular patrols. Nira waited until dusk, when the patrols would be changing shifts, and crossed quickly. The mining camp was exactly where Darius's map said it would be. Abandoned buildings slouched against the hillside, wood rotted and metal rusted. The cache was hidden in the old overseer's office, buried under loose floorboards. Nira found it without trouble. Weapons, good steel, well-maintained, medicine that could save lives, food enough for weeks. She was packing it into her bag when she heard voices outside. Patrol. Naira's heart kicked into high gear. She moved to the window carefully and looked out. 3 wolves. One of them was her cousin, Lena. They were checking the buildings methodically, working their way toward the office. In less than a minute, they'd be on top of her. Nira looked around frantically. One door, no other exits. Windows too small to climb through. She was trapped. Think. Don't panic. Use what you have. She grabbed a piece of rotted wood and wedged it against the door, buying herself seconds. Pulled out her knife. Checked the shadows, deep enough in the corners to hide if they didn't look too carefully. The voices got closer. Nothing out here, someone was saying. Haven't been for years. Protocol is protocol, Lena's voice. We check every structure. Footsteps on the old porch. The door handle rattled. It's stuck. Force it. A heavy impact. The wedge held. Another impact. Wood splintered. Nira pressed herself into the darkest corner, knife ready, breathing shallow and silent. All her training focused into this moment. The door burst open. 2 wolves entered, young males Nira didn't recognize. They swept the room with practiced efficiency, saw the disturbed floorboards, the open cache. Someone's been here, one of them said. Recently. Find them. They split up, checking behind debris, under tables, getting closer to her corner. Nira's fingers tightened on her knife. She could take one by surprise, maybe. But 3? No chance. Even with everything Darius had taught her, she needed a different way out. The first wolf moved past her hiding spot without looking. The second one turned away to check another corner. Nira made her decision. She burst from cover, not attacking, running, straight for the door using surprise and speed. She was through it before either wolf could react, boots hitting the porch, already sprinting for the tree line. Lena stepped into her path. They collided, went down in a tangle of limbs. Nira rolled, came up with her knife, faced her cousin for the first time in 2 months. Lena stared at her, eyes wide with shock. Nira? Stay back, Nira said, knife steady despite her racing heart. What are you? Lena's eyes took in the knife, the pack on Nira's back, the hardness in her expression. You're stealing from us? I'm surviving. The other 2 wolves burst out of the building, saw Nira, recognized her. The reject, one of them said. Ronan said if we saw her. I know what he said. Lena's voice was tight. Nira, put the knife down. Come back with us. We can talk to Ronan. Explain what? That I'm trespassing? Stealing? That I'm exactly what he said I was? Nira laughed, sharp and bitter. No thanks. Then we'll have to bring you back by force. The 2 males started to circle. Nira's mind raced, 3 on 1. Even with her training, the odds were terrible. Lena alone she might have had a chance against, but not all 3. She needed a distraction. Her hand moved to her belt, found the small pouch Mira had made her carry. Flash powder, meant for emergencies. Disqualified. Nira threw it at the ground between them and closed her eyes. The explosion of light and sound was deafening in the quiet forest. She heard the wolves yelp, stumble, opened her eyes and ran. Branches whipped her face, roots tried to trip her. Behind her she could hear pursuit. They'd recovered faster than she'd hoped, but she had a head start, and she knew how to move quietly now, how to use terrain. She ran for an hour, using every trick Darius had taught her. Changed direction randomly, crossed streams to break her scent, climbed trees and leaped between branches. Finally, she found a hollow under a fallen log and crawled inside, pressing herself into the damp earth, controlling her breathing. Footsteps passed close by. Lost her, someone said. Male, frustrated. How does a reject move like that? Another voice. Doesn't matter. Ronan will want to know she's been here. Come on. They moved away. Nira waited until full dark before emerging. Her entire body ached. Her hands were shaking from adrenaline. But she was alive, and she'd gotten the supplies. The journey back to camp took 4 days of careful travel, avoiding patrols, sleeping in trees, eating sparingly. When she finally walked into Darius's camp, filthy and exhausted, he was sitting by the fire. He looked up, saw her, saw the pack. Any trouble? He asked. Nira dropped the pack at his feet. Nothing I couldn't handle. He opened it, checked the contents, nodded approval. Good. You're learning. He pulled out a bottle of something amber and strong, poured 2 cups. Drink, then tell me everything. So she did. The ambush, the escape, running into Lena. Darius listened without interrupting. his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "They'll be watching for you now," he said finally. "The pack knows you're alive, knows you're capable. That makes you a threat." "I didn't mean... Doesn't matter what you meant. Matters what they'll do about it." He took a drink. "Things are going to get complicated, Nira. War's coming to the frontier. Packs are choosing sides, old alliances breaking down. And you..." He studied her. "You're caught in the middle of it." "What kind of war?" "The kind that doesn't care about rejects or outcasts or people trying to survive. The kind where everyone has to choose, fight or die." He refilled his cup. "Your training isn't done. It's just beginning. Because what comes next is going to make everything so far look easy." Nira felt something cold settle in her stomach, but also something else, something that felt almost like anticipation. She was tired of hiding, tired of running, tired of being the broken, useless wolf everyone had thrown away. If war was coming, maybe it was time to stop surviving and start fighting back. "Then teach me," she said. "Teach me everything." Darius smiled that cold, dangerous smile. "I was hoping you'd say that." The war came faster than anyone expected. 2 weeks after Naira's supply run, the first attack hit a neutral camp 15 miles south. 20 dead, most of them non-combatants. The Krell pack claimed it was retaliation for border violations. The Vex pack to the east called it an execution. Either way, the message was clear. The frontier was no longer neutral ground. Darius's camp fortified. They dug trenches, set traps, doubled the watch rotations. Refugees started trickling in, outcasts and rogues looking for protection, willing to trade labor for safety. The camp population swelled from 6 to nearly 30 in a matter of days. Nira found herself training the newcomers, teaching them what Darius had taught her: how to fight dirty, how to survive when the odds were stacked against you, how to make every advantage count. Some of them learned quickly. Others didn't last a week before running off, unable to handle the reality of what survival actually meant out here. "You're good at this," Mira said one evening, watching Naira correct a young woman's knife grip. "Teaching, I mean. I'm just repeating what I learned." "No, you're adapting it, making it work for people who aren't you." Mira leaned against a post, arms crossed. "That's leadership." Nira didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. But the word stuck with her. Leadership. As if she was someone worth following, someone worth listening to. The girl who'd been rejected for being broken and useless. The irony tasted bitter. 3 weeks in, a messenger arrived at dawn. A young wolf, barely 18, half-starved and bleeding from a gash across his ribs. He collapsed at the camp entrance, gasping out a message before anyone could even get him water. "Darius Vorn. Need to speak to Darius Vorn." Darius emerged from his quarters, already armed. "I'm here. Talk." "The warlord king..." The messenger coughed, blood flecking his lips. "He's calling a summit. All independent factions, all outcasts, everyone not sworn to a major pack. 3 days from now, at the old fortress ruins in the Hollow Valley." "Why?" Darius's voice was flat, revealing nothing. "Because the packs are forming an alliance. Krell, Vex, Thornridge, they're putting aside their feuds to sweep the territories clean. They're calling it a unification. Everyone else calls it ethnic cleansing." The messenger's eyes were desperate. "The warlord king thinks if we stand together we have a chance. Alone we're all dead within the month." Gareth spat into the dirt. "The warlord king is insane. Half the stories about him are myths, and the other half are worse. Myth or not, he's offering protection." The messenger looked around at the camp, at the fortifications, at the armed fighters. "You think these walls will stop 3 allied packs? You think you can hold out when they come with their full strength?" Silence fell over the camp. Darius studied the messenger for a long moment, then nodded to Mira. "Get him water and food. Tend that wound." He turned to Gareth and Nira. "With me." They followed him to the central hall, a stone building that served as command center and armory. Darius spread a map across the table, marking positions with small carved stones. "The warlord king," he said quietly, "is not a myth. I've met him. Fought alongside him, once, years ago. He's real, and he's dangerous." "Then why consider his offer?" Naira asked. "Because the messenger's right. 3 allied packs will wipe us out. We're strong, but not that strong." He moved the stones representing the major packs, showing how they'd encircle the outer territories. If they coordinate their attacks, we'll be surrounded in days, cut off from resources, from escape routes. They'll starve us out or burn us out, whichever comes first. So we join the summit, Gareth said. Unite the outcasts, fight back. Maybe. Darius's fingers drummed on the table. Or we use it as cover to disappear, scatter into deeper wilderness, let the packs fight each other instead of us. That's cowards talk, Gareth snapped. That's survival talk. There's a difference. Darius looked at Naira. What do you think? She blinked, surprised to be asked. Me? You. You've been pack-born. You know how they think, how they operate. What would Ronan do if he heard about this summit? Naira thought about it, about Ronan's careful calculations, his obsession with control and hierarchy. He'd send spies, she said slowly, try to infiltrate the summit, identify the leaders, map the alliances. Then he'd target the strongest groups first, eliminate them before they could organize properly. Exactly, Darius tapped the map, which means the summit is a trap waiting to happen. Everyone in one place making themselves easy targets. Unless that's what the Warlord King wants, Naira said. The idea crystallized as she spoke. Draw out the pack spies, identify them, eliminate them, turn the trap around. Darius smiled. Now you're thinking like a strategist. It's still a huge risk, Gareth argued. We show up, we're committed. Can't just walk away if things go bad. Everything's a risk now, Darius said. Question is which risk gives us the best odds. He looked between them. We have 3 days to decide. Think about it. Talk to the others. We vote tomorrow night. Naira left the meeting feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. War, alliances, strategy on a scale she'd never imagined. This wasn't about surviving a rogue attack or stealing supplies anymore. This was about choosing sides in something that could reshape the entire frontier. That night, she couldn't sleep. She walked the camp perimeter, checking traps and fortifications out of habit, her mind churning through possibilities. The newcomers were settling in, building shelters, trying to create some semblance of normal life. Children, actual children, played near the well, their laughter strange and out of place in a military camp. Can't sleep either? Naira turned. Cade stood a few feet away, his shoulders still healing but functional. He'd been quieter since the ambush, more withdrawn. Too much to think about, she said. Yeah. He moved to stand beside her, looking out at the forest. I've been thinking about my old pack. The one I left. They weren't like Krell, they were smaller, weaker. When I left, they had maybe 40 members. Now? He shook his head. Now they're probably gone, absorbed by one of the big three, or wiped out for resisting. I'm sorry. Don't be. I left for a reason. They were dying slowly anyway, too stubborn to adapt, too weak to fight. He glanced at her. But I keep wondering if I should have stayed, tried to help them change instead of running. Would they have listened? Probably not. His smile was sad. Kind of like how your pack didn't listen when you tried to tell them you weren't broken. The words hit harder than Naira expected. I never said that. I never tried to convince them. Maybe you should have. Cade's voice was gentle but firm. Maybe the problem wasn't that your wolf was silent. Maybe it was that everyone was too busy assuming they knew what that silence meant. Naira wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. Because part of her had always wondered the same thing. What if her wolf wasn't broken? What if it was just different? Doesn't matter now, she said finally. I'm not pack anymore. No, you're something else, something new. Cade pushed off the wall. And whatever we're becoming out here, it's going to matter when this war really starts. We're going to matter. He left her alone with that thought. The vote came the next night. 32 people gathered in the central hall, the largest meeting Naira had ever seen in camp. Darius stood at the head of the table, his presence commanding attention without him having to say a word. You all know why we're here, he began. The packs are forming an alliance. They're coming for us, for everyone who doesn't fit into their perfect hierarchies. We have 3 options: attend the summit and join the resistance, scatter and try to disappear, or stay here and fortify until they come for us. Staying is suicide, someone called out. Scattering means abandoning everything we've built, another voice argued. And the summit could be a massacre, Naira added. We don't know this Warlord King, don't know if we can trust him. Trust him or not, he's offering a chance, Gareth said. Better than waiting here to die. The debate raged for an hour. Arguments flying back and forth, voices rising, tensions escalating. Naira listened, watching how people aligned themselves, how the fear and anger shaped their positions. Finally, Darius raised his hand. Silence fell. "We vote," he said simply. "Stay, scatter, or summit. Majority decides." The count was close. 15 for the summit, 12 for scattering, 5 for staying. "Summit it is," Darius said. "We leave tomorrow. Everyone capable of fighting comes, the rest stay and maintain the camp." His eyes swept the room. "This isn't just about survival anymore. This is about whether we let the packs define what we are, or if we define it ourselves. Choose carefully." The meeting broke up. People drifted away in small groups, already forming plans and alliances. Nira found herself alone with Darius again. "You didn't vote," he said. "I'm still figuring out where I stand." "No, you're not. You voted for the summit the moment you explained Ronan's strategy." Darius began cleaning his weapons, methodical and precise. "You're just afraid to admit you want to fight back." "I'm not afraid." "Yes, you are. You're afraid that if you commit to this, you'll become everything your old pack said you were. Dangerous, unpredictable, a threat." He looked up, eyes sharp. "But here's the truth, Nira. You already are those things. The question is whether you're going to use it or let it rot inside you." Nira's hands clenched. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Don't I? I've watched you train people who would have died without your help. I've seen you make impossible decisions and live with the consequences. You're more than you were 3 months ago, and you know it. The only person still treating you like a broken reject is you." The words landed like physical blows. Because he was right. Nira had spent so long defining herself by what she lacked. No wolf, no pack, no worth, that she'd never stopped to consider what she'd gained. Skills, knowledge, the ability to survive in a world that wanted her dead. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. "I want you to stop hiding behind the ghost of who you used to be and become who you're meant to be." Darius set his knife aside. "The war's coming whether you're ready or not. Better to meet it head-on than let it swallow you whole." He left her alone in the armory, surrounded by weapons and choices. The journey to Hollow Valley took 2 days of hard march. 15 fighters from Darius's camp, all armed and wary. They moved in formation, scouts ranging ahead, alert for ambushes. The forest grew stranger as they traveled. Older trees, thicker canopy, places where the sunlight barely penetrated. They weren't alone on the roads. Other groups converged from different directions. Rogues, outcasts, small packs that had refused to swear loyalty to the big three. Some eyed each other with suspicion. Others formed loose alliances on the road, strength in numbers. By the time they reached the valley, there were close to 300 fighters gathered, maybe more. The fortress ruins dominated the valley floor. Ancient stone walls, partially collapsed towers, a courtyard large enough to hold an army. Someone had set up a command tent in the center, banners flying from makeshift poles. Cooking fires dotted the perimeter. It looked less like a military summit and more like a desperate refugee camp. "Stay close," Darius murmured to his group. "Don't start fights, but don't back down either. Respect is earned here, not given." They found a spot near the eastern wall and set up camp. Nira helped raise tents, organize supplies, keeping her eyes on the crowd. So many faces, so many stories of rejection and survival. Warriors with scars, families with children, lone wolves who'd chosen freedom over submission. All of them here because the packs had deemed them unworthy. Quite a gathering. Nira turned. A man stood a few feet away watching her with interest. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver-streaked hair despite looking maybe 40. His eyes were strange. One brown, one pale blue, almost white. He wore simple leather armor, well-used but maintained. "It is," Nira agreed cautiously. "You're with Darius Vorn's group." "How did you know?" "I make it my business to know who's who." He extended a hand. "I'm Kyle Riven. I run a group of scouts to the north." Nira shook his hand, noting the strength in his grip. "Nira. No pack name?" "Not anymore." "Ah, rejected?" There was no judgment in his voice, just curiosity. "Yes. Join the club. Half the people here have similar stories." Kyle gestured to the gathering. "The Warlord King thinks we can turn that rejection into strength, forge something new from the broken pieces." "And you believe him?" I believe we don't have much choice. Kyle's smile was tired. But belief and hope aren't the same thing. I'll fight because the alternative is death. Whether we win? He shrugged. That's another question. A horn sounded across the valley. 3 long notes, deep and resonant. That's the call, Kyle said. Summit's starting. Better find a spot if you want to hear what he has to say. The crowd converged on the central courtyard. Naira pushed through with Darius's group, trying to get close enough to see. The tension was palpable. 300 fighters, all watching, all waiting. A figure emerged onto a raised platform of stacked stones. The Warlord King. Naira's breath caught. He was enormous, easily 6.5 feet tall, built like he'd been carved from the mountains themselves. Black hair fell to his shoulders, streaked with gray. His face was all hard angles and old scars, the kind that came from 1,000 battles. But it was his presence that hit hardest, a weight in the air, a pressure that made her wolfless soul flinch. This was an alpha, a true alpha, unlike anything she'd ever felt from Ronan. I am Darius Vorn, the Warlord King said, his voice carrying across the silent valley. Nira's head snapped to the side, looking at her Darius. He was watching the platform with an unreadable expression. Wait, she whispered. If he's Darius Vorn, then who are... Borrowed the name, her Darius murmured. Seemed appropriate at the time. Real one never minded. Keep listening. On the platform, the Warlord King continued. You're here because the packs have cast you out, called you broken, weak, useless. They've taken everything from you, family, home, identity. They think that makes you nothing. He paused, letting the words sink in. They're wrong. The crowd stirred. You survived when they said you wouldn't. You adapted when they said you couldn't. You're here, standing, fighting, refusing to disappear into the dirt where they tried to bury you. That makes you dangerous. That makes you powerful. And that, his voice rose, filling the valley, is why they fear you. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the fighters. The packs are forming an alliance, Darius Vorn continued. Krell, Vex, Thornridge, old enemies putting aside their feuds because they fear us more than they hate each other. They're coming to wipe us out, to erase the evidence that their perfect hierarchies don't work for everyone, that some of us are stronger without them. He stepped forward to the very edge of the platform. I'm not asking you to join me because I promise victory. I can't promise that. The packs are stronger, better organized, better trained. They have the numbers and the resources. What I'm offering is a choice. Die on your knees, alone and forgotten, or stand together and make them remember that we existed. Make them pay for every inch of ground they take. Show them that rejection doesn't mean defeat. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. I've fought in wars that broke nations, Darius Vorn said quietly. I've seen armies rise and fall. And I've learned one truth that never changes. It's not the strongest who win. It's the ones willing to sacrifice everything for what they believe in. The ones who refuse to surrender even when surrender is the smart choice. He raised his fist. So I ask you, are you willing to fight? Knowing you might die? Knowing history might forget your names? Are you willing to stand against the packs and say, we are worth something and you'll remember us whether you want to or not? The roar that answered him shook the valley. 300 voices, all screaming defiance, all choosing to fight rather than fade away. Naira found herself shouting with them, her throat raw, her heart pounding. Around her, fighters raised weapons, stamped feet, howled their answer to the sky. They would fight. They would make the packs remember. The summit broke into smaller groups after that, leaders coordinating strategy, fighters organizing into units. Naira's Darius, she'd have to think of a different name for him now, gathered his people. Well, Gareth said, that was inspiring. Inspiring doesn't win wars, Mira countered. Strategy does. And I didn't hear much strategy in that speech. That comes next, Darius said. The speech was about commitment, making sure everyone's in before we start planning how to actually fight. And are we in? Kate asked quietly. Darius looked at each of them in turn. We already voted. We're here. That means we're in. A runner approached, a young woman with the Warlord King symbol painted on her arm. Darius is calling for all unit leaders. Central tent now. Go, Mira said to Darius. We'll secure our position here. Nira started to follow the others, but Darius caught her arm. Come with me, he said. I'm not a unit leader. No, but you're the only one here who's been inside pack territory recently. Your intelligence is valuable. He started walking. And you need to meet him. Trust me. They entered the command tent. Inside, maybe 20 people stood around a large map table. The real leaders, the ones who'd been organizing resistance long before this summit. The warlord king stood at the head of the table, listening to a report from one of his scouts. His eyes found Nera immediately. She felt the weight of his gaze, that alpha presence pressing against her. But something was different. Instead of making her want to submit, it made something inside her rise to meet it. That sleeping thing in her soul stirred, just slightly, like a predator recognizing another predator. The warlord king's eyes narrowed. "Who's this?" he asked Darius. "Nera Ashvale. She's been working with my group for 3 months. Recently infiltrated Krell territory and escaped with valuable intelligence." Ashvale? The name seemed to mean something to him. Related to the Ashvale line in the Krell pack? "I was," Nera said, finding her voice. "Not anymore." "Rejected?" "Yes." He studied her for a long moment. "Your wolf?" "Silent." "Interesting." He turned back to the map. "Silent wolves are rare. Most don't survive past childhood. Those that do are usually more dangerous than anyone expects." He marked a position on the map. "Tell me about Krell's patrol patterns." So she did. Everything she'd observed during her supply run, routes, timing, numbers. The Warlord King listened, asked sharp questions, cross-referenced her information with reports from other scouts. Gradually, a picture emerged of the 3 allied packs' positions, their weaknesses, potential targets. "They're planning a coordinated sweep," one of the other leaders said, a grizzled woman missing 2 fingers on her left hand. "Start from 3 sides. Push inward. Trap us in the center." "Classic pincer movement," the Warlord King agreed, "which means we need to break one of the pincers before they can close. Hit them hard enough to make them pull back and regroup." "That's suicide," someone argued. "We can't match their numbers in open battle." "Then we don't fight open battles. We fight smart." His finger traced a line on the map. "Krell's supply lines run through the Broken Ridge Pass. It's narrow, defensible, and they rely on it for their eastern forces. We take the pass, we cut off 1/3 of their army from reinforcements and supplies." "That's deep in their territory," Nera's Darius said. "They'll have it heavily guarded." "Which is why we'll need a diversion. Something big enough to pull their main forces away." The Warlord King looked around the table. "I'm open to suggestions." The planning session went late into the night. Strategies proposed, debated, refined. Nera mostly listened, learning how warfare on this scale actually worked. It was nothing like pack conflicts. No challenges, no honorable combat. Just cold calculation about how to hurt your enemy while keeping your own people alive. Finally, the Warlord King called an end to the meeting. Leaders dispersed, heading back to their groups. Nera started to follow Darius out, but a hand caught her shoulder. "Stay," the Warlord King said. "We need to talk." Darius hesitated, looked at Nera. She nodded. He left. Alone with the Warlord King, Nera felt that presence even stronger. He moved around the tent, pouring 2 cups of something that smelled like pine and smoke. "Drink," he said, handing her one. She drank. It burned going down, sharp and clean. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked. "Feel what?" "Your wolf. It's not gone. It's sleeping." He watched her over the rim of his cup. "I've seen it before, in wolves born into packs that don't match their nature. The bond doesn't form because there's nothing to bond to. The pack hierarchy, the alpha's call, it's all wrong for what you are." Nera's heart was pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're not broken, Nera Ashvale. You're something else entirely. Something most packs wouldn't recognize because they've never encountered it before." He set his cup down. "Tell me, when Ronan rejected you, did it hurt? The bond breaking?" "No," she admitted. "There was nothing. Because there was no bond to break. You were never his mate. You were never meant to be anyone's mate, to submit to any alpha." His eyes were intense, knowing. "You were meant to be the alpha." The words hit like lightning. "That's impossible," Nera whispered. "Females can't be—" "Can't be what? Pack leaders?" "Says who? The same packs that rejected you?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. The hierarchies aren't natural law, Nira. They're traditions, created by wolves who wanted to maintain power. But power doesn't care about tradition. It cares about strength, will, the ability to lead, and you have all three. My wolf is silent, because it's waiting for you to claim it, to stop asking permission and take what's yours. He moved closer. I can feel it in you, that sleeping power. It's why my presence doesn't make you want to submit. Why you can stand in a room full of alphas and hold your ground. Your wolf knows what it is, even if you don't. Nira's mind was reeling. Everything she'd believed about herself, about her defect, about why she'd been rejected. It was all wrong? How do I wake it up? She asked. Stop waiting for permission. Stop trying to fit into someone else's hierarchy. Your wolf will wake when you're ready to lead, not follow. He stepped back. The war's coming. When it does, you'll have a choice. Stay in the background or step forward and become what you were meant to be. Choose carefully. He left her alone in the tent, her entire world tilting on its axis. She wasn't broken. She wasn't useless. She was something the Pax had never seen coming. Nira walked back to her camp in a daze, the Warlord King's words echoing in her head. Around her, fighters prepared for war, sharpening weapons, checking armor, saying what might be final goodbyes. The night was cold, clear, stars scattered across the sky like broken glass. She found her Darius sitting by their fire, alone. He told you, Darius said. It wasn't a question. You knew? Nira sat across from him. You knew what I was and you never said anything? I suspected, couldn't be sure. He poked the fire with a stick, sending sparks spiraling upward. And even if I'd told you 3 months ago, would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was crazy? She wanted to argue, but he was right. 3 months ago, she'd been so broken, so convinced of her own worthlessness, that she'd never have accepted the truth. What happens now? She asked. Now we fight. Win or lose, we make our stand. He looked at her across the flames. And you decide who you're going to be when the dust settles. The girl who got rejected, or the queen who rose from the ashes. I don't know how to be a queen. Neither did I when I started. You learn as you go. They sat in silence for a while, watching the fire burn down to embers. Somewhere in the camp, someone started singing, a low, mournful song in a language Nira didn't recognize. Others joined in, voices blending, creating something haunting and beautiful and defiant. Tomorrow, the war would start. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, she was just Nira Ashvale, sitting by a fire, trying to reconcile the girl she'd been with the person she was becoming. Trying to imagine what it would feel like when her wolf finally woke up. The attack came at dawn, not from the Pax, from within. Nira woke to screams and the clash of weapons. She rolled out of her bedroll, grabbed her knife, emerged from her tent into chaos. Fighters were battling each other, the camp tearing itself apart from the inside. Spies? Someone yelled. They got spies in the camp! Darius was already fighting, his blade flashing in the early light. Nira ran toward him, saw a woman she recognized from last night's meeting driving a spear toward his back. Nira's knife left her hand before thought. It buried itself in the woman's throat. She went down choking. More attackers poured from the shadows. They'd been hiding among the gathered fighters, waiting for this moment. Coordinated. Planned. The Pax had infiltrated the summit. Fall back to the fortress! The Warlord King's voice boomed across the valley. Defensive positions! The retreat was chaos. Fighters scrambling for weapons, for cover, trying to organize while enemies struck from within their own ranks. Nira fought her way toward the fortress walls, her training taking over. Slash, dodge, strike, move. Bodies fell around her. Some were enemies. Some were allies she'd spoken to yesterday. They reached the fortress. The gates slammed shut. But the damage was done. Maybe 50 dead in the initial attack, more wounded. And now they were trapped, surrounded by enemies both outside and among them. Check everyone, Darius Vorn ordered. Anyone you don't recognize, anyone who can't verify their group, isolate them now. It took hours to sort through the survivors, identify the remaining spies, and secure the fortress. By the time they finished, the sun was high and the pack armies were visible on the ridges surrounding the valley. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They'd been set up, lured here, weakened from within, and now surrounded. Nira stood on the fortress wall, looking at the assembled might of 3 allied packs, and felt something crack inside her. Not break. Crack. Like a shell beginning to fracture. And from that crack, something ancient and terrible started to wake. Her wolf. Finally. And it was furious. The pain was unlike anything Naira had ever felt. Not physical pain, though her body ached from the morning's battle, but something deeper. A tearing sensation in her chest, like something that had been dormant for 23 years, was finally clawing its way to the surface. Her vision blurred. The fortress wall beneath her hands felt both solid and distant, reality splitting into fragments. "Naira?" Darius's voice came from somewhere far away. "What's wrong?" She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe. The crack inside her was widening, something massive pushing against it, demanding release. Her wolf. After years of silence, years of absence, it was waking up, and it was not gentle about it. Her knees buckled. Hands caught her before she hit the stone, Darius pulling her away from the wall at the edge, lowering her to the ground. She heard shouting, felt people gathering around, but it all seemed distant, unimportant compared to the war happening inside her skull. "Give her space!" That was Mira's voice, sharp and commanding. "Get back!" "What's happening to her?" Gareth, closer now. "Her wolf." The Warlord King's voice, certain and calm. "It's awakening, finally." The pain intensified. Naira's spine arched, muscles seizing. She could feel her bones shifting, not changing, but preparing, like her body was remembering something it had forgotten. Heat flooded through her veins, burning away everything that had been holding her back. Fear, doubt, the internalized shame of rejection. And then, for the first time in her life, she heard it. A voice that was hers, but not hers. Ancient and young at the same time, furious and patient, wild and controlled. "About time," her wolf said. "I've been waiting for you to be ready." "Ready for what?" Nira gasped the words out loud. "To fight back. To stop cowering. To become what we were always meant to be." The presence of her wolf filled her consciousness like water flooding a dry riverbed. Memories that weren't memories rushed through her. Instincts, knowledge, power that had been locked away. She understood now why her wolf had never responded to Ronan's call. Why the pack hierarchy had felt wrong against her skin. She wasn't meant to follow, she was meant to lead. The realization hit like lightning, and with it came the full awakening. Naira's eyes snapped open, not her normal gray but burning gold. Power radiated from her in waves, pressing against everyone nearby. Several fighters stumbled back, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of alpha presence. The Warlord King laughed, delighted. "There it is." Nira pushed herself to her feet, her body moving with a grace and certainty it had never possessed before. She felt complete for the first time in her life. Whole. The silence in her head was gone, replaced by her wolf's constant, powerful presence. "How long?" she asked the Warlord King, her voice rougher, deeper. "How long what?" "How long have you known what I was?" "Since you walked into my tent last night." He smiled. An alpha knows another alpha, even when they don't know themselves. Especially when they're this powerful and still dormant. You practically vibrated with suppressed potential. Darius, her Darius, not the Warlord King, stepped forward cautiously. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been living half alive my entire life." Nira looked at her hands, feeling the power humming beneath her skin. "Like I can finally breathe." A horn sounded from outside the fortress. The pack armies, demanding attention. "We'll celebrate your awakening later," the Warlord King said. "Right now, we have a siege to survive." He moved toward the wall, gesturing for others to follow. "Everyone who can fight, defensive positions. We need to assess their numbers and strategy before they attack." Naira followed, her new awareness making everything sharper. She could smell the pack wolves even from this distance, their confidence, their bloodlust, their certainty of victory. Could feel the fear rippling through the fighters around her, the way some of them were already accepting defeat. They'd been outmaneuvered, surrounded, cut off from supplies and escape routes. By all strategic logic, they'd lost before the fight even started. But logic assumed both sides were playing by the same rules, and Naira's wolf had never been good at following rules. From the fortress wall, the situation looked worse than she'd feared. The pack armies had positioned themselves on 3 sides, blocking every major escape route. Krell forces to the west, recognizable by their silver-gray armor. Vex to the north, leather and bone. Thornridge to the east, wearing their traditional green and brown. Maybe 1,500 wolves total, against their 300, now reduced to barely 250 after the spy attack. "They'll wait until nightfall," the Warlord King said, studying the positions. "Let us panic, maybe surrender. Then they'll attack under cover of darkness when our defenses are weakest." "We could try to break through," someone suggested. "Pick the weakest point and punch through before they're ready." "We'd lose half our people in the attempt," Mira countered, "and the survivors would be hunted down in the forest." "So we just wait to die?" Gareth's frustration was palpable. "No." Mira surprised herself by speaking. All eyes turned to her. "We don't wait, and we don't run. We make them come to us, and we make them regret it." The Warlord King's smile was sharp. "I'm listening. They think we're trapped, desperate, defeated." Naira's mind was racing, her wolf feeding her instincts and strategies she'd never consciously learned. "They think they can just wait us out, maybe pick us off if we try to escape. They're not expecting us to attack." "Because attacking would be insane," someone muttered. "Exactly." Naira turned to face the gathered leaders. "They have superior numbers and position, but they also have 3 different pack hierarchies, 3 different chains of command. They're allies, but not united. Each alpha wants glory for their own pack, wants to be the one who lands the killing blow." She could see understanding dawning on several faces. "We turn that against them," Darius said, catching on. "Make them fight each other for the honor of attacking first." "How?" Mira asked. Naira's wolf whispered the answer. It was cruel, manipulative, and absolutely brilliant. "We challenge them," she said, "publicly. Not to battle, to single combat. Call out their alphas as cowards hiding behind their armies. Make it personal." The Warlord King's expression shifted from interest to approval. They'd have to respond. Pack honor demands it. "And once one alpha accepts, the others will be forced to as well, or look weak," Nira continued. "Instead of a coordinated assault, we get 3 separate fights, 3 chances to kill their leadership and break their alliance." "That's still 3 alpha-level fighters against whoever we send out," Gareth pointed out. "We'd need champions capable of winning those fights." "I'll take one," the Warlord King said immediately. "I've been looking for a good fight." "I'll take another," Darius said. "I owe the Vex Alpha for some old business anyway." Everyone looked at Naira. She met their gazes steadily, her wolf's confidence burning in her chest. 3 months ago, she would have been terrified, would have refused, knowing she couldn't win without a wolf, without the strength and speed that came with shifting. But she wasn't that girl anymore. "I'll take the 3rd, she said. "I'll fight Ronan." Silence fell over the group. "That's suicide," Mira said flatly. "He's been alpha for 5 years. He's never lost a challenge. He's never fought me when I actually had something to fight with." Nira could feel her wolf's savage satisfaction at the thought. "And I have things to say to him that require a captive audience." The Warlord King studied her, then nodded slowly. "It's risky, but risk is all we have left. If we win even one of those fights, we break their morale. Win 2, and their alliance fractures. Win all 3, he smiled. We turn certain defeat into impossible victory." "And if we lose?" someone asked. "Then we die fighting instead of cowering. I'll take that over surrender any day." The Warlord King raised his voice, addressing all the gathered fighters. "Prepare for single combat challenges. I want our best archers on the walls, ready to prevent treachery. Healers standing by. And someone find me a white flag. We're going to invite them to a conversation." The next hour was controlled chaos. Fighters scrambled to positions, weapons were distributed, strategy was refined. Nira found herself in the armory, selecting weapons for the fight ahead. Her hands moved with certainty, her wolf guiding her choices. A balanced blade, light armor that wouldn't restrict movement, nothing heavy or cumbersome. "You don't have to do this." She turned. Cade stood in the doorway, his expression troubled. "Yes, I do. Why?" "Proving something to Ronan won't change what happened." "This isn't about proving something." Nira tested the blade's weight, adjusted her grip. "It's about showing everyone, including myself, that rejection wasn't the end of my story. That being cast out made me stronger, not weaker." "What if you lose?" "Then I lose, but I'll lose fighting, not hiding." She sheathed the blade. 3 months ago, I would have run from this. would have convinced myself I didn't deserve to fight back. But I'm not that person anymore, Cade. I'm something new, and that person doesn't run. He was quiet for a moment. Your eyes are different. Gold instead of gray. Everything's different. She touched her chest, where her wolf's presence burned steady and fierce. I'm finally whole. Then show them. Cade managed a weak smile. Show all of them what they threw away. The white flag went up an hour before sunset. A delegation approached from the pack lines, 3 wolves, 1 from each army. They stopped at the base of the fortress wall, looking up. We accept your surrender, the Krell representative shouted. His voice carried, meant to be heard by everyone. Send out your leaders for judgment. The Warlord King appeared on the wall, his presence commanding immediate attention. We're not surrendering, he called down. We're challenging. 3 single combats, winner takes all. Your alphas against our champions. Unless they're too afraid to face us without their armies backing them up? The insult landed perfectly. Nira could see the representatives stiffen, outrage radiating from them. Alpha Ronin Krell does not fear anyone, the Krell wolf said. Then he'll accept. As will the others. Or is pack honor just empty words these days? The Warlord King's smile was visible even from a distance. Dawn tomorrow. Neutral ground in the center of the valley. Your alphas against ours. No interference, no tricks. Just strength against strength. Or you can admit you're too weak to face us fairly, and we'll know the truth about your so-called power. The representatives conferred briefly, then withdrew. Think they'll accept? Gareth asked quietly. They have to, Nira said. We just questioned their honor in front of their entire armies. If they refuse now, they look cowardly, and alphas can't afford to look cowardly. She was right. An hour later, a horn sounded from the pack lines, 3 long notes, the traditional signal of challenge accepted. The fights would happen at dawn. That night, Nira couldn't sleep. She sat on the fortress wall, watching the pack campfires burn in the distance, her wolf's voice a constant presence in her mind. They were having conversations now, her conscious self and this ancient part of her soul, discussing strategy and power and what came next. Tomorrow changes everything, her wolf said. Win or lose, you'll never be the rejected girl again. You'll be the one who stood against her alpha and fought back. I'm terrified, Nira admitted silently. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just don't let it control you. I didn't wait 23 years to wake up just to watch you give up now. Why did you wait so long? Her wolf was quiet for a moment. Because you weren't ready. You were too focused on fitting in, on being what they wanted you to be. I couldn't emerge into that environment. I would have been suppressed, broken, forced to submit to wolves weaker than us. So I waited. Waited for you to be rejected, cast out, forced to become something new. Only then could I wake safely, fully. That's calculating. That's survival. And now we're both here, both ready. Tomorrow, we show them what we really are. Footsteps on stone. The Warlord King approached, settling beside her on the wall. Can't sleep either, he asked. Too much happening in my head. Your wolf talking to you? Constantly. Is it always like this? At first, yes. Eventually, you learn to share space more smoothly. The conversation becomes internal, automatic. He looked out at the enemy fires. How do you feel about tomorrow? Honest answer? Always. Terrified and eager in equal measure. Nira flexed her fingers, feeling power hum beneath her skin. I know what Ronin can do. I've watched him fight for years. He's fast, strong, experienced. By every measure, I should lose. But I'm not the same person he rejected. I have advantages he doesn't know about, strengths he can't anticipate. And I have 3 months of training from someone who taught me that rules are optional and survival is everything. The Warlord King chuckled. Darius taught you well. He was one of my best fighters back when we served together. Brutal, efficient, uncompromising. I'm glad he found you. He saved my life. No, he gave you the tools to save yourself. There's a difference. The Warlord King stood, preparing to leave. Get some rest. Tomorrow you'll need every advantage you can get. And Nira, when you face Ronin, don't fight for revenge. Fight for yourself. Fight to prove that you are always worthy, always powerful, always exactly what you were meant to be. That's how you win. He left her alone with her thoughts, and her wolf, and the weight of tomorrow's fight. Dawn came cold and gray, mist hanging low over the valley floor. Nira dressed carefully, light leather armor, flexible and protective without restricting movement. Her blade hung at her hip, balanced and deadly. Her hair was pulled back tight, nothing for an opponent to grab. She looked in a polished metal mirror and barely recognized herself. Gold eyes blazed back at her, fierce and certain. This wasn't the girl who'd stood in the pack circle and accepted rejection with quiet dignity. This was someone new, someone dangerous, someone who'd fought her way out of the darkness and emerged stronger. "Ready?" Darius appeared in her doorway. "As I'll ever be." They walked to the valley floor together, joining the warlord king. Around them, fighters lined the fortress walls, watching. From the pack camp, soldiers emerged to witness the challenges. This had become more than a military engagement. It was theater, spectacle, a test of leadership and power that would determine the outcome of the entire conflict. 3 circles had been marked in the dirt, each large enough for combat but small enough to prevent running. The pack alphas emerged from their lines. Ronin from the west, tall and confident, silver-gray armor gleaming. Alpha Vex from the north, older and scarred, moving with predatory certainty. Alpha Thornridge from the east, broad and massive, built like a bear. All of them powerful, all of them experienced, all of them certain they would win. Ronin's eyes found Nira across the field. She saw his shock, quickly masked. He hadn't expected her to be here, to be one of the champions. His gaze flicked to her golden eyes, and understanding dawned. Her wolf had awakened. Good. Let him be uncertain for once. The terms! A neutral arbiter stepped forward, a lone wolf respected by all sides. Single combat to surrender or death. No interference from either army. Victory in 2 of 3 challenges determines the overall winner. The losing side withdraws from the territory and does not return. Do all parties agree? Agreed, the warlord king said. The 3-pack alphas nodded. Then choose your circles and begin. The warlord king moved to the northern circle, facing Alpha Vex. Darius took the eastern circle, facing Alpha Thornridge. That left Nira and Ronin in the western circle, standing 20 feet apart, the morning mist swirling between them. "Nira," Ronin said, his voice carrying, "you don't have to do this. Your wolf has awakened. That's worth celebrating. Come back to the pack. We can discuss..." "Discuss what?" Nira cut him off. "How you rejected me in front of everyone? How you declared me broken and useless? How you cast me out to die?" She drew her blade. "No, we're past discussion, Ronin. Now we fight, and you learn what you threw away." His expression hardened. "So be it." He shifted. The transformation was fluid, practiced, bones cracking and reforming, fur sprouting, a massive silver-gray wolf emerging where the man had stood. Easily 200 pounds of muscle and teeth and killing instinct, an alpha in his prime. Nira's wolf stirred. "Let me out. Let me show him what we are." But Nira hesitated. She'd never shifted before. Didn't know if she could. If her body would respond correctly after years of dormancy. What if she tried and failed? What if her wolf was awake but her physical form couldn't change? "Trust me," her wolf said. "Trust us. We're ready." Nira closed her eyes, reached for that place inside where her wolf lived, and let go. The shift hit her like a tidal wave, pain and pleasure mixed, her body remembering something it had never done but somehow always known. Bones cracked and reformed, muscles tearing and rebuilding, fur erupting across her skin. Her senses exploded, smell became overwhelming, hearing sharpened, sight shifted to catch movement and heat. When it finished, she stood on 4 legs instead of 2. Powerful, balanced, absolutely certain. She was larger than Ronin. Not by much, but enough to matter. Her fur was midnight black with streaks of silver, and her eyes burned gold even in wolf form. She was magnificent. Ronin circled, wary now. He'd expected an easy fight against someone who'd never shifted. Instead, he faced an alpha wolf in her prime, powerful and unpredictable. "First shift and already you're this strong?" His mental voice carried surprise. "What are you?" "Everything you said I'd never be." She attacked. 3 months of training with Darius took over. She didn't fight like a pack wolf. No honorable challenges, no testing strikes. She went for his throat immediately, using speed and surprise. Ronin dodged, barely. her teeth snapping shut inches from his jugular. They clashed in a fury of teeth and claws. Ronan was experienced, knew how to use his weight and strength. But Naira was faster, more vicious, fighting with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. She ducked under his lunge, raked claws across his flank, drew blood. He snapped at her legs, trying to cripple her movement. She leaped, twisted, landed behind him and bit down on his shoulder, tearing muscle. Ronan howled, threw her off. They separated, circling again, both bloodied now. "You've learned to fight dirty," he said. "That's not pack style." "I'm not pack anymore. You made sure of that." She could hear the other fights happening nearby. The Warlord King and Alpha Vex locked in brutal combat, Darius and Thornridge trading devastating blows. But she couldn't afford to watch, couldn't afford any distraction. Ronan was too dangerous for that. He charged, using his weight advantage to try to bowl her over. Naira sidestepped at the last second, let his momentum carry him past, then struck at his exposed side. Her teeth found ribs, bit down hard. Bone cracked. Ronan yelped, twisted, broke free. He was limping now, favoring his injured side. "Yield," Naira said. "You've lost." "Never." But there was doubt in his voice now, fear creeping in. You're still just what? Defective, broken, useless?" Naira's laugh was harsh. "Those were your words, Ronan, and they were wrong. I was never broken. I just didn't belong in your hierarchy. Because I was meant to be the hierarchy." She attacked again, relentless. Ronan defended, but he was slower now, injured and uncertain. His strikes became desperate, defensive. Naira pressed the advantage, driving him backward, forcing him to give ground. A roar from the northern circle. Naira risked a glance. The Warlord King stood over Alpha Vex's prone form, victorious. One fight won. The distraction cost her. Ronan's claws raked across her shoulder, deep and painful. She snarled, spun, caught his foreleg in her jaws, and twisted hard. Something snapped. Ronan screamed, collapsed. Naira stood over him, teeth at his throat, applying just enough pressure to make her point without killing. "Yield," she said again. For a long moment, Ronan was silent. Then quietly, "I yield." The Arbiter's voice rang out. "Western Circle, Victor, Naira Ashvale." Cheers erupted from the fortress walls. 2 fights won. The third was still ongoing. Darius and Thornridge locked together, neither giving ground. Naira shifted back to human form, her body protesting every movement. Blood ran from the shoulder wound, but it was superficial. She'd won. Actually won. Beaten the Alpha who'd rejected her, proven herself in front of everyone. Ronan shifted back too, clutching his broken leg. He looked up at her, and for the first time she saw real fear in his eyes. "What are you?" he whispered. "I'm what you made me." She picked up her fallen blade. "You rejected me, cast me out, declared me worthless. And in doing so, you created your own destruction. Because if you'd kept me, trained me, recognized what I was, I might have been loyal. Instead, you taught me that your pack, your hierarchy, your rules were all lies. And now I'm going to burn them all down." A final roar from the eastern circle. Darius stood victorious, Thornridge unconscious at his feet. 3 for 3, complete victory. The Arbiter's voice carried across the silent valley. "All 3 challenges won by the defenders. By the terms agreed, the Pack Alliance must withdraw and not return." For a moment, nobody moved. 1,500 pack wolves staring at the impossible, their 3 strongest alphas defeated by outcasts and rejects. Then, slowly, the pack armies began to withdraw. Some moved reluctantly, others quickly, all of them shaken by what they'd witnessed. Their alliance had been shattered, their leaders humiliated, their certainty destroyed. Naira stood in the center of the western circle, covered in blood and victory, and watched them go. She'd done it. They'd all done it. Turned certain defeat into impossible victory. The fortress erupted in celebration. Fighters poured out onto the valley floor, cheering, embracing, crying with relief. They'd been certain they would die today. Instead, they'd won. Won against superior numbers, won against established power, won against every expectation. The Warlord King approached Naira, his own wounds already healing. He gripped her shoulder, his expression proud. "You did well," he said. "Better than well. You fought like an alpha. I am an alpha." The words felt right, felt true. I always was, I just didn't know it. And now? Now everyone knows it. She looked at the retreating pack armies, at Ronan being carried away by his soldiers, defeated and broken. Now things change. Darius joined them, limping but grinning. That was the most insane, brilliant, reckless strategy I've ever seen executed, and it worked. Barely, the warlord king said. If we'd lost even one fight, their armies would have charged and overwhelmed us. But we didn't lose. We won. And that changes the balance of power on this entire frontier. Mira appeared, medical supplies in hand. Let me see those wounds before you bleed to death, celebrating. As she worked, Nira felt her wolf settle into a contented purr. They'd proven themselves. Proven they were strong, capable, worthy of respect. But her wolf also whispered a warning. This isn't over. We won today, but the packs won't forget this. They'll regroup, adapt, come back stronger. This was just the beginning. Nira knew she was right. Today was a victory, but the war wasn't finished. The packs would remember this humiliation, would remember that a rejected, defective wolf had awakened and defeated their alpha. They'd come for her again. But next time, she'd be ready. Next time, she wouldn't be fighting alone. As the celebration continued around her, Nira allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She'd come so far from the broken girl standing in that pack circle 3 months ago. Had survived exile, ambush, training, war. Had awakened her wolf and claimed her power. Had become exactly what everyone said she could never be. And this was just the start. The celebration lasted 3 days, but Nira felt the weight of what came next pressing down on her from the first hour of victory. Word spread fast across the frontier. The outcasts had won. 3-pack alphas defeated in single combat. The impossible had happened, and now every rejected wolf, every rogue, every outcast who'd been told they were worthless, had hope. They started arriving at the fortress within days, first in 1s and 2s, then in groups of 10, 20, more. All of them looking for the place where the broken had become powerful, looking for her. You've become a symbol, the warlord king said on the 4th morning after the battle. They stood on the fortress wall watching another group of refugees approach. Whether you wanted to or not. I didn't ask for this. No one asked to be a symbol. It just happens when you do something that matters. He gestured to the growing camp below. These people see you and see possibility. See that rejection isn't the end. You've given them something more dangerous than weapons or strategy. You've given them hope. Hope doesn't win wars, doesn't it? The warlord king smiled. I've seen armies with superior numbers and weapons fall to smaller forces who believed they could win. Hope is a weapon, Nira. Maybe the most powerful one we have. She wanted to argue, but the evidence was literally pouring through the gates. The fortress that had held 300 now housed close to 600, and more came every day. They needed organization, leadership, structure. They needed someone to guide them. Myra's wolf stirred restlessly. They're looking to us. We can't ignore that. I don't know how to lead this many people. Then learn, like you learned everything else, by doing. That afternoon, Nira called a meeting of all the group leaders who'd fought at the battle. 23 people gathered in the fortress hall, representing different factions, different backgrounds, all united by their victory and uncertain about what came next. We need to talk about structure, Nira began, feeling awkward and exposed standing at the head of the table. We won the battle, but we can't survive on momentum alone. We need supply lines, training rotations, scouting networks. We need to become more than just a collection of outcasts hiding in a fortress. We need a leader, Kael Riven said bluntly. Someone to coordinate everything, make final decisions. The warlord king has his own territory to manage. Someone needs to lead here. I nominate Nira, Mira said immediately. Several voices agreed, others looked uncertain. She's barely been with us 4 months, someone argued. There are people here who've been fighting longer, know more about, and how many of them awakened as alphas and defeated a pack leader in single combat, Gareth interrupted. She's proven herself, that's what matters. Being a good fighter doesn't make someone a good leader, another voice countered. The debate escalated. Nira listened, feeling her wolf's agitation grow. This wasn't how she'd imagined things going. She'd fought to survive, to prove she wasn't broken. She hadn't fought to become a leader, to be responsible for hundreds of lives. Enough! The warlord king's voice cut through the argument. Nira, step outside with me. She followed him out of the hall, grateful for the escape. They walked to a quiet corner of the fortress, away from the noise and the crowds. "You're terrified," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Good. Leaders who aren't afraid of the responsibility usually become tyrants." He leaned against the wall. "But you can't let fear paralyze you. These people need guidance, and whether you like it or not, you're one of the few here with the presence and the proven ability to provide it." "I don't know what I'm doing." "No new leader ever does. You think I knew what I was doing when I first started building my territory? I made mistakes. Still make them. But I learned, adapted, kept trying. That's all leadership is. Making decisions, accepting consequences, and doing your best not to get everyone killed while you figure things out." Nira was quiet for a moment, watching refugees set up shelters in the courtyard. Families, fighters, healers, all of them looking for something stable to hold on to. "What if I fail them?" she asked quietly. "You will. Multiple times. That's inevitable." The Warlord King's voice was a matter of fact. "The question is whether you'll learn from those failures or let them break you. I don't think you're the breaking type anymore." Her wolf agreed. "We've been broken before. It didn't stick. We're stronger now." Nira took a deep breath. "If I do this, if I accept leadership, I do it my way. No pack hierarchies, no forced submission. People follow because they choose to, not because some ancient instinct compels them." "That's why you'd be good at it. You understand what it's like to be forced into a role that doesn't fit." The Warlord King pushed off the wall. "Come on, let's go tell them you're accepting." The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Some celebrated, others looked skeptical. A few openly disagreed, arguing that tradition demanded certain structures be followed. "Then leave," Nira said bluntly to the dissenters. "I'm not holding anyone here against their will. If you want traditional pack structure, go find a pack that'll take you. But if you stay, you follow my rules, or rather my lack of rules. We work together, fight together, survive together. No forced hierarchies, no alpha dominance bullshit, just people choosing to stand with each other." 3 people left. The rest stayed. It was a start. The next weeks were brutal. Naira learned to lead through trial and error, making mistakes and adapting. She organized supply runs, established training schedules, created councils to handle disputes. Darius helped her set up defensive networks. Mira coordinated healers and weapons maintenance. Gareth took charge of combat training. Slowly, chaos became order. The fortress became more than a refuge, it became a community. But the packs hadn't forgotten. 6 weeks after the battle, scouts brought news. The 3 allied packs were regrouping, absorbing smaller packs, growing stronger. Ronan had been challenged and replaced by a younger, more aggressive alpha named Corvan. The new leadership was consolidating power, and they had a singular focus: destroying the outcasts who'd humiliated them. "They're coming back," Kael reported during a council meeting. "My scouts say they're building an army 3 times the size of what attacked us before. They're calling it a crusade, a cleansing of the frontier." "When?" Nira asked. 2 months, maybe 3. They're being methodical this time, making sure they have overwhelming numbers before they move. Nira looked around the table at her council. "We can't win a direct confrontation. Even with everyone we've gathered, we're still outnumbered 4-1. "Then we don't fight direct," Darius said. "We use guerrilla tactics. Hit and run, sabotage, make them bleed for every mile they advance." "That only delays the inevitable," Mira countered. "Eventually they'll overwhelm us through sheer numbers." "Unless we change the game entirely," Naira said slowly, an idea forming. "We've been thinking like this is a military problem. But what if it's a political one?" Everyone looked at her. "The packs are allied, but it's an alliance built on shared hatred of us. What if we remove that shared enemy? What if we make them fight each other instead?" "How?" Gareth asked. Nira's mind was racing, pieces falling into place. "We spread information, false information. Make each pack think the others are planning to betray them. Forge documents, plant evidence, create doubt. Turn their alliance into suspicion and paranoia." "That's incredibly risky," Kael said. "If they catch on, it'll only make them angrier. They're already planning to kill us all. How much angrier can they get?" Nira stood, moving to the map on the wall. "We have people who came from those packs. People who know their internal politics, their leaders, their rivalries. We use that knowledge. We craft lies that sound true, that play into existing tensions. We make them tear each other apart before they can get to us. It's manipulative, someone said. It's survival. Naira met their eyes. I'm not interested in fighting fair anymore. Fair gets you killed. I'm interested in winning, and if that means playing dirty, then we play dirty. The warlord king, who'd been listening quietly, smiled. Now you're thinking like a queen. The plan took shape over the following weeks. They identified key tensions within the pack alliance, old feuds, territorial disputes, personal rivalries between leaders. Then they began crafting their deceptions. Forged letters suggesting Corvan planned to eliminate his allies once the outcasts were defeated. Planted evidence of secret meetings between Vex and Thornridge, implying they were forming a separate alliance. Rumors spread through carefully managed channels about how each pack planned to claim the best territory for themselves. The lies were subtle, believable, designed to exploit existing suspicions. And they worked. Within a month, scouts reported increased tensions within the pack alliance, arguments during joint planning sessions, accusations of betrayal. Vex pulled some of his forces back from the joint assembly point. Thornridge did the same. Corvan increased patrols along his own borders, defending against potential attacks from his supposed allies. The alliance was fracturing. They're eating each other alive, Kael reported with barely concealed satisfaction. Their crusade is falling apart before it even starts. But Nira felt no triumph, only exhaustion and a growing awareness of what she'd become. This isn't who I wanted to be, she said to Darius one night. They sat by the fire, the fortress quiet around them. When I was rejected, when I left my pack, I just wanted to survive, to prove I wasn't broken. Now I'm lying, manipulating, playing games with people's lives. You're doing what you have to do to protect your people, Darius said. That's leadership. It feels like becoming the thing I hated. Ronan used to play these kinds of political games. I despised him for it. The difference is motive. Ronan did it for power and control. You're doing it for survival. Darius poked the fire with a stick. But yeah, it changes you. Every choice you make, every line you cross, it shapes who you become. You can't lead without getting your hands dirty. The question is whether you can live with the person you're becoming. Nira stared into the flames, her wolf unusually quiet. I don't know anymore. Then maybe it's time to figure that out. The answer came unexpectedly. A messenger arrived at dawn, a young wolf, barely 16, half-starved and desperate. He carried a letter sealed with the Krell Pack symbol. For Alpha Naira Ashvale, he gasped. From Alpha Corvan, he requests a meeting, just the two of you, to discuss terms. The council immediately objected. It's a trap, Mira said. He'll kill you the moment you're alone. Or try to, Naira said, reading the letter. He's proposing neutral ground, witnesses from both sides, formal truce conditions. He wants to talk. Why? Gareth demanded. Because their alliance is collapsing and he knows it. Because fighting us while also watching his back against Vex and Thornridge is suicide. Nira set the letter down. He's looking for a way out that doesn't completely destroy his credibility. So what do you want to do? The Warlord King asked. Nira was quiet for a long moment, feeling her wolf's anticipation. This was a chance to end things without more bloodshed. But it was also an opportunity to face the pack that had rejected her one final time. I'll meet with him, she said, but on my terms, my ground, my conditions. If he wants peace, he'll accept. If he wants war, we'll give him that too. The meeting was set for 3 days later, at the old stone bridge that marked the border between territories. Naira brought 10 fighters, enough to defend against treachery, not so many as to seem threatening. Corvan brought the same. He was younger than Ronan had been, maybe 30, with sharp features and calculating eyes. He studied Naira as she approached, his expression revealing nothing. Alpha Ashvale, he said formally. Alpha Corvan. She stopped 10 feet away. You wanted to talk. I'm listening. Directly to the point. I appreciate that. Corvan gestured to the bridge. Walk with me? Just us. Our people can watch from here. It was a calculated risk. Naira's wolf assessed him. Strong, dangerous, but also desperate. He needed this meeting to work more than she did. Fine. They walked onto the bridge alone, the river rushing beneath them. For a moment, neither spoke. You've caused me considerable problems, Corvan said finally. You were planning to exterminate us. I responded appropriately. Fair point. He almost smiled. Your information warfare was impressive. Destructive, but impressive. Vex and Thornridge barely speak to me now. They're convinced I'm planning to betray them. Are you? I was considering it. His honesty was surprising. But your manipulations made that impossible. Any move I make now looks like confirmation of the lies you spread. Clever. I learned from the best. Your packs taught me that survival means doing whatever it takes. Corvin was quiet for a moment. You've changed the frontier, you know. Every outcast, every rejected wolf now thinks they have a chance. You've given them hope, made them believe they can stand against us. That's more dangerous than any army. Then maybe your pack should reconsider how they treat people. Maybe exile and rejection aren't the best strategies for maintaining power. Maybe. He turned to face her. I didn't come here to debate pack politics. I came to propose a truce. You stop the information warfare. Stop recruiting from our territories. In exchange, we acknowledge your sovereignty over the outer territories. No more crusades, no more attempts to wipe you out. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. Nira studied him, searching for deception. Why would you offer that? Because fighting you costs more than it's worth. You've proven you can't be easily defeated. Every attack we plan, you counter. Every alliance we form, you fracture. And while we're focused on you, our own territories grow unstable. It's pragmatic. Cut our losses. Focus on maintaining what we have. And your pride, your honor, all that alpha posturing about not tolerating outcasts? Pride doesn't feed our people or protect our borders. Corvin's expression hardened. I'm not Ronin. I don't care about symbolic victories or proving points. I care about survival and stability, and right now peace with you serves both better than war. Nira's wolf whispered advice. He's telling the truth, but he's also weak. We could push for more, demand reparations, force him to acknowledge our superiority. But Nira was tired of fighting, of scheming, of being what others expected her to be. I have conditions, she said. Of course you do. First, any wolf who wants to leave your packs and join us can do so without retaliation. You don't chase them, don't punish their families, don't make examples. They walk away freely. Corvin's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. What else? Second, you formally acknowledge me as alpha of the outer territories. Not as an outcast leader, not as a rogue warlord, as an equal to any pack alpha. That acknowledgement gets shared with Vex and Thornridge, too. That's asking a lot. That's asking for basic respect, something your packs should have given me from the start. Nira stepped closer. You want peace? You want stability? Then stop treating us like we're less than you. Acknowledge that rejection doesn't equal worthlessness. That different doesn't mean broken. Do that, and I'll stop tearing your alliance apart. Corvan was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended his hand. You have my word and my acknowledgement. Alpha Nira Ashvale, sovereign of the outer territories, equal in standing to any pack leader on this frontier. Nira took his hand. His grip was firm, his eyes honest. The truce was sealed. News of the agreement spread rapidly. Some celebrated. Peace meant survival, meant their children could grow up without constant war. Others felt betrayed. They wanted revenge, wanted the packs to pay for years of rejection and cruelty. Nira addressed them all in the fortress courtyard. Hundreds gathered to hear what she had to say. I know some of you wanted blood, she began, wanted to make them suffer like we suffered. I understand that anger. I felt it, still feel it sometimes, when I remember standing in that circle being rejected in front of everyone I'd ever known. She paused, letting the words sink in. But we didn't survive this long just to become what they are. We didn't fight and bleed and build this place just to turn into the same hierarchies that cast us out. We're better than that. We have to be. They deserve to pay, someone shouted from the crowd. Maybe they do, but making them pay costs us something too. Costs us lives, time, the peace we've fought for. And I'm tired of paying that price. Nira looked across the faces before her. I didn't accept this truce because I think they've earned forgiveness. I accepted it because I think we've earned peace. Because every person here deserves to build a life without constantly looking over their shoulder. She took a breath, feeling her wolf's support. I became an alpha not because I wanted power, but because I refused to let rejection define me. I fought not because I'm strong, but because I had no other choice. And I'm choosing peace now, not because I'm weak, but because I'm strong enough to know when the fight is won. Is it won? Mira called out. Or are we just pausing before the next battle? Honestly, I don't know. Naira's honesty seemed to surprise people. Maybe this peace lasts. Maybe it falls apart in a year. But we'll face that if it comes. For now, we have safety, acknowledgement, the right to exist without persecution. That's more than any of us had 4 months ago. That's worth protecting. The crowd was quiet, processing. I'm not asking you to forgive them, Nira continued. I'm asking you to choose your future. Do you want to be defined by what was done to you, or by what you build despite it? Do you want revenge, or do you want something better? Slowly, people began nodding. Not everyone. Some still looked angry, unconvinced. But enough. Enough to move forward. That night, Naira stood on the fortress wall one final time, looking out at the territory she'd claimed through blood and determination. Her territory now, acknowledged and sovereign. The warlord king joined her, his presence familiar and grounding. You did well today, he said. I feel like I let people down, like they wanted a warrior queen and got a peacemaker instead. You gave them something better, a leader who knows when to fight and when to stop fighting. That's wisdom, Naira, and it's rare. He looked out at the darkening sky. You've accomplished something remarkable here. Built a place where outcasts can be whole, where rejection isn't the end of the story. That's a legacy worth having. What happens now? Now you lead. Build your territory, help your people, create the kind of place you wished existed when Ronan cast you out. And maybe, if you're lucky, you change how the entire frontier thinks about pack politics and rejection. He smiled. Or maybe you just survive and that's enough. Either way, you've proven everyone who doubted you wrong, including yourself. Naira thought about that, about the girl who'd stood in that pack circle 4 months ago, silent and broken, about everything she'd survived since then, the exile, the training, the battles, the awakening, about becoming an alpha despite everyone saying it was impossible. My brother Kael sent a letter, she said quietly. He wants to visit. Says the pack is different now, quieter, that some people regret what happened. Will you let him come? Yes. He's still family, still someone who tried to help when no one else did. She paused. And maybe it's time to show them what I've become. Not to prove anything, but just to let them see. Closure? Maybe. Or maybe just moving forward without carrying all that weight. Naira turned to face him. Thank you for everything. For giving me a chance when I had nothing. I gave you an opportunity. You did the rest yourself. The warlord king gripped her shoulder. You're going to be a good queen, Naira Ashvale. Not perfect. No one is. But good. And that's all anyone can ask. He left her alone with her thoughts and her wolf and the territory that was finally, truly hers. 3 days later, Kael arrived with 2 others, former pack members who'd grown disillusioned and wanted to join the outcasts. Nira met them at the gates, and for a moment, she and her brother just stared at each other. Then Kael smiled, the same easy grin from childhood. Look at you, gold eyes and everything. You're terrifying now. Good. But she was smiling too. They walked through the fortress together, Kael taking in the organized chaos, the diversity of people, the lack of rigid hierarchy. This is nothing like a pack, he said, amazed. That's the point. Naira showed him the training grounds, the council hall, the residential areas. We're building something new here, something that doesn't require submission or dominance to function, just people choosing to stand together. Mom and Dad ask about you sometimes, Kael said quietly. They don't say it directly, but I know they wonder if you're alive, if you're okay. And what do you tell them? That you're more than okay. That you're exactly what you were always meant to be. He looked at her seriously. They were wrong, Naira. The whole pack was wrong. I'm sorry I didn't fight harder for you. You were 17 and you did what you could. She squeezed his shoulder. I don't need apologies anymore, Kael. I just need people to see that rejection isn't the end. That sometimes it's the beginning of something better. Over the following months, the outer territories grew. More refugees arrived, drawn by stories of the place where outcasts became powerful. They built new structures, established trade routes, created systems of governance that didn't rely on alpha dominance. It wasn't perfect. There were disputes, challenges, moments when old habits tried to reassert themselves. But it worked. Nira learned to lead, not through force, but through example, through listening, through being willing to admit when she was wrong and adapt. She made mistakes, chose poorly sometimes, misjudged situations, let her emotions override logic. But she learned from each failure, grew stronger, more confident. Her wolf became a constant companion, their voices blending until she couldn't always tell where one ended and the other began. They were complete, finally, after so many years of painful silence. 6 months after the truce, a formal ceremony was held. Representatives from all 3 pack alliances came, not to fight, but to witness. The Warlord King presided, making the acknowledgement official and binding. By the authority vested in me and recognized by all parties, I name Nira Ashvale as Alpha of the Outer Territories, sovereign and equal to any pack leader on this frontier. Let it be known that these lands and their people are under her protection and authority. Let it be known that she has earned this position through strength, wisdom, and the will to create something new from the ashes of rejection. The gathered witnesses, some grudging, some genuinely respectful, acknowledged her. Even Corvan, representing Krell, nodded his acceptance. Nira stood before them all, wearing simple leather armor, no crown or ceremonial furs. She didn't need symbols of power. Her presence was enough. "I accept this responsibility," she said, her voice carrying across the silent courtyard. "Not because I sought power, but because those who've been cast aside deserve someone who understands what that feels like, who knows what it means to be called broken and worthless and defective, and who refuse to let those words define them." She looked at the representatives, at her people, at everyone who'd doubted and everyone who'd believed. "I'm not perfect. I'll make mistakes. But I promise you this. I will never forget where I came from. We'll never forget what rejection feels like, what exile costs, what it takes to survive when everyone says you won't. And I will build a place where that survival isn't just possible, but where it leads to something worth living for." The crowd erupted in cheers. Not pack howls of dominance, but human celebration, raw, genuine, earned. Later that evening, after the ceremony ended and the representatives departed, Nira found herself alone in her quarters. She looked at her reflection in polished metal, gold eyes staring back, confident and certain. She thought about the girl who'd stood in that pack circle, accepting rejection because she believed she deserved it. Thought about everything that girl had endured to become the woman standing here now. "We did it," her wolf said quietly. "We survived. We thrived. We became everything they said we couldn't be." "We did," Nira agreed. "But more than that, we became something they never imagined, something better than what they wanted us to be." She turned away from the reflection, looking out the window at her territory, at the lights burning in hundreds of shelters, representing hundreds of lives she was responsible for. It was terrifying. It was exhausting. It was exactly what she'd been meant to do all along. The next morning, she woke early and walked through the fortress as the sun rose. People were already moving, starting fires, preparing food, beginning their daily routines. A child ran past, laughing, chased by friends. A group of fighters trained in the courtyard, perfecting techniques Nira had helped develop. Healers organized their supplies, scouts prepared for patrols, crafters worked at their trades. Life. Vibrant, messy, beautiful life. Darius found her watching from a balcony. "Feeling philosophical?" "Feeling grateful." She smiled. "4 months ago I had nothing. Now I have all this. It seems impossible." "That's because you're thinking of it as luck." "It wasn't. You earned every bit of it through blood and determination and refusing to give up." He leaned against the railing beside her. "You know what the real victory is? Not beating Ronan, not forming this territory. It's that you could have become bitter, vengeful, cruel after what they did to you. Instead, you became kind. Tough when necessary, but fundamentally kind. That's the real miracle." Nira thought about that, about all the choices she'd made, the lines she'd refused to cross even when it would have been easier. "I don't want to be what they are," she said. "I want to be better, not perfect. I'm way too flawed for that. But better. Every day, a little better than yesterday. That's all anyone can ask, and it's more than most achieve." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the territory wake up. Nira's wolf stirred contentedly. This is home, finally. And it was. Not the home she'd been born into, not the pack that had rejected her, but something new, something chosen, something built from the broken pieces of who she'd been into something stronger. She was no longer the defective wolf, the rejected mate, the girl with the silent bond. She was Naira Ashvale, alpha of the outer territories, queen of the outcasts. She was everything they'd said she could never be. And she was just getting started, because the real work wasn't surviving rejection. It was building something beautiful from the ashes of that rejection. It was proving every day that worth wasn't defined by who wanted you, but by who you chose to become despite those who didn't. It was teaching others that broken wasn't the same as worthless, that different wasn't defective, that sometimes the greatest strength came from refusing to let others define your value. She'd learned that lesson in blood and pain and desperate survival. Now she'd spend the rest of her life teaching it to anyone who needed to hear it. To every outcast, every reject, every person told they weren't enough. She'd show them the truth. That sometimes being cast out was the best thing that could happen, because it gave you the freedom to become something greater than you ever could have been in the place that tried to contain you. And that was a lesson worth living for.